The crystal glasses clinked against the mahogany bars of the Lancaster Hotel's grand ballroom. My brother's wedding reception was in full swing, a celebration of not just his marriage to the perfect socialite bride, but of everything the Sullivan name represented in Boston's elite circles. I sat at my assigned table, purposefully distanced from the family section, watching the scene unfold. The string quartet played softly, the champagne flowed freely, and Boston's elite mingled with practiced ease. My father, James Sullivan, worked the room like the king he believed himself to be, his silver hair catching the light, his tuxedo immaculate. My phone buzzed silently. A message from Diana, my lawyer. All documents filed. Ready when you are. 3 years of careful planning had led to this moment. 3 years since I discovered the truth about my father's empire, about my grandmother's stolen legacy, about everything the Sullivan name really meant. Julia. My mother's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood beside my table, elegant in her designer gown, disapproval etched on her face. Couldn't you have done something with your hair? It's your brother's wedding. I touched my simple updo, which had cost more than her entire outfit. Hello, Mother. You look lovely. She clutched her champagne glass like a shield. At least you came. Though Michael wasn't sure he wanted to invite you, after everything. Everything. Such a convenient way to package the past 3 years. My dramatic departure from Sullivan Properties, my supposed failure to launch my own career, my absence from family functions. They'd crafted the perfect narrative. Poor Julia, too weak for the business world, too soft for the Sullivan way. If only they knew. I wouldn't miss my brother's wedding, I said softly, watching Michael dance with his new bride, Sarah. She was perfect for him. Old money, impeccable manners, and most importantly, a thorough understanding of her place in the Sullivan hierarchy. My mother hesitated, trying not to cause a scene. Your father's in a good mood. Let's keep it that way. I smiled, thinking about the envelope in my clutch. Don't worry, Mother. Everything will happen exactly as it should. The night progressed predictably. Toasts were made, dances were shared, and Boston's elite congratulated themselves on another successful merger of prominent families. I watched it all from my quiet corner, remembering the night 3 years ago when everything changed. I'd found the documents in my father's private safe, the original will my grandmother had signed before her death, so different from the version that appeared afterward. Then I discovered more. Forged papers, threatened witnesses, decades of systematic fraud that had built the Sullivan empire. When I'd confronted him, he'd laughed. This is business, Julia, he'd said dismissively. You're too soft to understand. This is why Michael will run the company. He gets it. I'd walked away that day, but not before making copies of everything. Then I'd spent 3 years building my own empire under a different name, Alexander Rose Properties, named after my grandmother. No one had made the connection because no one had ever bothered to learn her full name. Now, as the reception reached its peak, my father clinked his glass for attention. Time for his speech. Today, he beamed. My son Michael proves himself once again to be a true Sullivan. He's chosen a wonderful bride. He's leading our company to record profits, and he understands what this family name means. His eyes found me in the crowd, unlike some who share our blood, but not our values. The room grew quiet. Even Michael looked uncomfortable. Julia, my father continued, his voice carrying across the ballroom, you may have been born a Sullivan, but you've proven you don't deserve our name. Your weakness, your so-called ethics, they have no place in our world. I stood slowly, every eye in the room on me. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "You're right, Dad," I said, my voice clear and calm. "I don't deserve the Sullivan name. I deserve better." I walked toward him, opening my clutch and removing the envelope. "Consider this my wedding gift to the family." He took the envelope, probably expecting a check or a card, but as he opened it, his face turned ash white. What is this?" "The deed to your house," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "and the mortgage documents showing that Alexander Rose Properties now owns it. I'm your new landlord." The room erupted in whispers. My father's hands shook as he read the papers. "This is impossible," he stammered. "Alexander Rose, that was your grandmother's." "Yes," I smiled. "The grandmother you cheated. Turns out I learned more from you than you thought. I just chose to use those lessons differently." The crystal glasses stopped clinking. The string quartet faltered. Boston's elite stood frozen, watching their king being dethroned by his own daughter. "You can't do this," my father hissed, gripping the papers so tightly they crumpled. "I'll fight it." "Like you fought grandmother's will?" I asked quietly. "Or should we discuss how you manipulated those documents too? Should we talk about Janet Miller, the nurse you threatened? Or maybe about the offshore accounts where you hide the properties you stole?" Michael stepped forward, leaving his bride on the dance floor. "Julia, what are you doing? This is my wedding." "Yes, it is," I agreed. "And Dad just chose to use it as a platform to publicly denounce me. I'm simply responding in kind." Diana emerged from the crowd, tablet in hand. "Mr. Sullivan, we have documentation of systematic fraud dating back to 1998, including the illegal acquisition of Alexander Rose Montgomery's property portfolio. Would you like to discuss this publicly, or should we move this conversation somewhere more private?" The whispers grew louder. Phones appeared in hands as Boston's elite sensed a scandal brewing. My mother appeared at my father's side, her face a mask of barely controlled panic. "Private room," she whispered urgently. Now, we moved to a conference room off the main ballroom. My father, mother, Michael, Diana, and me. The door closed behind us, muffling the buzz of speculation we'd left behind. "You think you can destroy everything I built?" my father growled, pacing like a caged animal. "No, Dad. I'm exposing how you destroyed everything grandmother built." I pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. "This press release goes live at midnight. Alexander Rose Properties acquires Sullivan Properties' debt portfolio in historic deal. Want to know how I did it?" "That's impossible," Michael interjected. "I oversee all our holdings." "There's no way. Check the shell companies Dad created in the Caymans," I suggested. "The ones he used to hide grandmother's properties. Better yet, check this." I handed Michael another document, the original will our grandmother had signed, leaving her properties to me with specific instructions for community development and affordable housing. "Dad made sure this version disappeared," I explained. "Just like he made sure Janet Miller disappeared after she witnessed him threatening grandmother to sign the new will." My mother sat heavily in a chair. "James, tell me this isn't true." But my father's face said everything. He knew he was caught. "You were always too soft," he spat at me. "Just like your grandmother, with her foolish ideas about community service and ethical development." "No, Dad, I was never soft. I was patient. And while you were laughing at my supposed failures, I was building something you never could, an honest empire." Diana laid out more documents. Alexander Rose Properties now controls 60% of Sullivan Properties' debt, along with direct ownership of key assets, including the family estate. We're prepared to negotiate terms, but only if Mr. Sullivan agrees to step down immediately. Michael was reading through the papers, his face growing paler by the minute. The community center demolition. Mrs. Chen's family restaurant. Dad, what did you do? What I had to do, my father exploded. To build something that would last. To create a legacy. You stole my legacy, I said quietly. Grandmother's legacy. And now, I'm taking it back. The room fell silent, except for the muffled sounds of the reception continuing outside. My father's carefully constructed world was crumbling, and he knew it. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice hollow. Justice, I replied. Starting with the return of every property you stole, the restoration of every business you destroyed, and the implementation of grandmother's original vision for ethical development in Boston. You'll destroy everything. No, Dad, I'll rebuild everything. The right way. The morning after my brother's wedding, Boston's financial district buzzed with carefully controlled chaos. Headlines dominated every major newspaper and business website. Sullivan Properties empire faces takeover. Alexander Rose Properties reveals true ownership. Real estate dynasty, rocked by fraud allegations. I sat in my office on the 40th floor of what had been Sullivan Plaza, now renamed Rose Tower as of this morning. The view of Boston Harbor stretched before me, sunlight glinting off the water just as it had when my grandmother had occupied this same office decades ago. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. 3 calls from the DA's office. Messages from every major news outlet. Dozens of emails from Sullivan Properties board members. A string of increasingly desperate texts from my father. But the message that caught my attention was from Sarah, my new sister-in-law. We need to talk. Breakfast? I hadn't expected that. At the wedding, after the confrontation, Sarah had managed to keep the reception going with remarkable poise. While my father raged and my mother wept in the private room, Sarah had orchestrated a seamless continuation of the celebration, preventing total social disaster. Ms. Montgomery. My assistant Thomas appeared at the door. I'd officially started using my grandmother's surname this morning. Your brother's here. Michael walked in, still in his wedding suit from last night. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept. He tossed a thick folder on my desk, the complete documentation I'd given him last night. I read everything, he said. Twice. And I need to know why you waited 3 years to expose this. I turned to the wall of windows, watching the city wake up. Because I needed to be certain. To build something strong enough to withstand the fallout. To make sure that when I took everything back, I could do it right. The offshore accounts were just the beginning, I confirmed. Dad's been laundering money through shell companies for decades. The properties he stole from grandmother were just his practice run. Michael sank into a chair. The community center demolition. I signed those papers. He told me it was abandoned property. It wasn't. He forced them out by tripling the rent, then declared it derelict, just like he did to the Chen family restaurant, the immigrant housing complex on River Street, the historic theater district. Stop. Michael held up his hand. I get it. I was part of it. I just didn't know. Because you didn't want to know, I said softly. It was easier to believe I was the weak one, the soft one, while you followed in his footsteps. What happens now? I pressed a button on my desk, and the wall behind me transformed into a digital display. Property maps, development plans, and financial projections filled the screens. Now we rebuild. Everything he destroyed, we restore. Starting with the Chen family restaurant and the community center. I pulled out a contract. Alexander Rose Properties needs a chief development officer. Someone who understands both sides of this business. Someone ready to learn a better way. Michael stared at the contract. You trust me, after everything? I trust that you've seen the truth now. The question is, what will you do with it? Before he could answer, Thomas appeared again. Ms. Montgomery, your father's here. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Michael half rose from his chair, but I waved him back down. Let him in, I said. It's time to finish this. James Sullivan stormed into my office, looking nothing like the polished real estate mogul yesterday. His clothes were rumpled, his silver hair unkempt, his eyes wild with a mixture of rage and fear. You think you can just take everything? He snarled. I built this company. No, I corrected calmly. You stole this company, piece by piece, starting with grandmother's properties. I simply took back what was rightfully mine. I pulled up more documents on the digital wall. The DA's office is particularly interested in your meetings with Commissioner Bradley about the zoning changes. The ones you claimed never happened. My father's face went pale. You recorded? No, Dad. You recorded it. Your own security system, remember? The one you were so proud of installing. I found the backup files in your private server. What do you want? My father's voice cracked, the fight beginning to drain from him. I want you to look, I said, gesturing to the digital display. Really look at what you destroyed. I pulled up images. The Chen family standing in front of their restaurant on opening day in 1975, the community center's after-school program graduation, the historic theater's final performance before mysterious structural issues forced its closure. These were people's lives, Dad, their dreams, their legacies, just like grandmother's legacy, the one you stole from her deathbed. Michael stood, moving closer to the display. The River Street Project. Those weren't empty buildings we demolished, were they? No, I confirmed. Dad had already arranged their eviction through shell companies, raised rents by 300% overnight, made it impossible for families who'd lived there for generations to stay. It was business, our father protested weakly. Progress. It was cruel, I cut him off. And illegal. The DA has enough evidence to put you away for decades, but that's not what I want. I pulled out another document, a comprehensive agreement I'd spent months preparing. Sign this, I said. Full confession of your financial crimes, immediate resignation from Sullivan Properties, transfer of all remaining assets to Alexander Rose Properties. In exchange, I'll ensure the criminal investigation focuses on Commissioner Bradley and the zoning board, not you. You'd protect me, he laughed bitterly. After everything? No, Dad. I'm protecting our family name. What's left of it. Sign, and you can retire quietly. Keep your house as my tenant. Maintain your social standing. Play golf with your corrupt friends. Fight me, and everything comes out. Michael picked up the agreement, reading carefully. The Alexander Rose Foundation. What is this? Grandmother's original vision, I explained. Mixed income housing developments, small business support programs, community space restoration. Everything she wanted to build before Dad decided profit mattered more than people. My father sank into a chair, suddenly looking old. Your mother already agreed to head the foundation's board, I said. Turns out she has quite a talent for charitable organization. Another thing you never noticed about her. The silence stretched as my father stared at the agreement. Finally, he picked up a pen. "You really are her granddaughter," he said quietly, signing his name. "Yes," I agreed. "I am." That's what you never understood. Grandmother's strength wasn't in bullying or manipulation. It was in vision, in purpose, in building something meaningful. After he left, Michael remained, holding the CDO contract I'd offered him. "If I take this," he said, "I want to start with the River Street project. Make it right. It won't be easy," I warned. "These people have every reason to hate the Sullivan name. Then maybe it's time we earned back their trust, the right way." As he signed the contract, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Still on for breakfast? I have ideas for the Foundation's youth program." I showed Michael the message. "Your wife's impressive." "She is," he agreed. Said she always knew something was wrong with how Dad operated. Called it old boys club corruption on our first date. Smart woman. Yeah. He stood, straightening his tie. "The press is going to be all over this." Let them. It's time Boston knew the truth about both sides of the Sullivan legacy, the corruption and the redemption. Looking out over the harbor, I could almost see my grandmother standing there, proud not of the buildings she'd owned, but of what she'd planned to do with them. Now, finally, her vision would become reality. The Sullivan Empire had fallen, but the Montgomery legacy was just beginning. 1 month after the wedding that shattered Boston's real estate dynasty, I stood on the construction site of what had once been the Chen family restaurant. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the partially demolished building, where workers were carefully preserving the original facade while modernizing the interior. Mr. Chen stood beside me, his weathered hands gripping the original deed I'd returned to him last week. "My father built this place," he said quietly. "Worked 3 jobs to buy it. Then one day papers come, rent triple, and we lose everything." "Not everything," I corrected, showing him the renovation plans. "We're restoring it exactly as it was, with updated kitchen facilities and an expanded dining room. The apartment upstairs will be yours again, and the rent will be locked in at the 1975 rate, adjusted only for standard inflation." He studied my face, searching for deception. He'd learned to distrust the Sullivan name. Why? Because my grandmother believed in building communities, not destroying them. And because it's time someone fixed my father's mistakes. My phone buzzed. Michael sending updates from the community center reconstruction site across town. He'd thrown himself into the restoration projects with unexpected passion, working alongside construction crews, meeting with displaced families, learning the human cost of our father's empire. The past month had transformed Boston's real estate landscape. Sullivan Properties had been fully absorbed into Alexander Rose Properties. The DA's investigation had uncovered widespread corruption in the zoning board. Commissioner Bradley faced multiple indictments. My father had retreated to his now rented mansion, making no public statements. My mother had surprised everyone by excelling at her role with the foundation. But most importantly, we'd begun the real work, restoring what was stolen, rebuilding what was destroyed, and creating something new from the ashes of the Sullivan Empire. "Ms. Montgomery?" Sarah approached, tablet in hand. My sister-in-law had proven to be an unexpected ally, bringing fresh perspectives and genuine commitment to the Foundation's mission. "The River Street families are here." I turned to see a group of people gathering near the construction trailers, former residents of the immigrant housing complex my father had demolished. Many had lived there for generations before being forced out. "Mr. Chen," I said, "would you join us? These people should hear your story." He nodded, clutching his deed like a shield. The meeting was held in what would become the restaurant's new community room. 30 families, each with their own story of loss and displacement, listened as Mr. Chen described his family's journey from ownership to eviction and back to restoration. Alexander Rose Properties isn't just rebuilding buildings, I explained, displaying the development plans. We're restoring communities. Every family here will have the right to return to River Street at their original rent rates. The new complex will include green spaces, community facilities, and small business incubators. "Why should we trust another Sullivan?" someone called out. "You shouldn't," I agreed. "That's why I'm not one anymore." The Montgomery name, my grandmother's name, stands for something different, and we'll prove it, one building at a time. Michael arrived as the meeting ended, his suit dusty from the community center site. "They've uncovered the original cornerstone," he reported. "The time capsule is still there." The community center's time capsule, buried in 1962 by the neighborhood's founding families. My father had claimed it was lost during demolition. "We'll open it at the restoration ceremony," I decided. Let people see their history wasn't completely destroyed. "Julia." Michael hesitated. "Dad's asking to meet. Says he has information about other properties, other families we should help." I considered this. Is he trying to save himself or make amends? Maybe both. The DA's closing in on his old partners. He might be trying to get ahead of it. "Set the meeting for tomorrow. It's time he contributed to the rebuilding." My phone buzzed again. Diana with updates. 3 more properties recovered through legal channels. Settlement negotiations with displaced businesses proceeding well. Foundation's first scholarship program launching next month. Historical Preservation Society offering partnership. "Ms. Montgomery." Mr. Chen approached as others left. "My daughter, she architect now. She want to help design new buildings. Community buildings." I smiled, remembering my grandmother's words about legacy being more than just property. "Have her call my office. We're building something new here. We need people who understand both the past and the future." The next morning, I sat across from my father in my office, watching him struggle with his new reality. He'd aged years in the past month, his once commanding presence diminished by the weight of his exposed crimes. "The waterfront district," he said, spreading old documents across my desk. There were 12 families, craftsmen, boat builders. I used shell companies to force them out in '95. "I know," I replied. "We've already located 10 of them, but 2 families disappeared completely." He nodded, pulling out a worn envelope. "The Martinez and the O'Briens. I paid them extra to vanish. The Martinez went to Miami, the O'Briens to Ireland." "Why?" "They knew too much, saw the paperwork I'd forged, threatened to expose everything." I took the envelope, examining its contents. Addresses, contact information, details of the payoffs. "Why tell me this now?" "Because," he said quietly, "your grandmother made me promise to protect those families. Instead, I destroyed them, just like I destroyed everything else she built." Before I could respond, Thomas appeared at the door. "Ms. Montgomery?" They found something at the River Street site. In the construction zone that afternoon, workers had uncovered a hidden basement room beneath the old housing complex. Inside, We found boxes of documents, my grandmother's original plans for the neighborhood, correspondence with community leaders, and detailed records of my father's systematic takeover. She knew, I realized, reading through the papers. She was gathering evidence against you. Yes, my father admitted. That's why I had to act when she got sick. She was planning to expose everything. Michael joined us, his face grim as he examined the documents. There's more, Julia. Records of other properties, other families. Dad's operation was bigger than we thought. I turned to my father. How many? Dozens, he whispered. Across 3 states. All people your grandmother had promised to protect. The scope of his crimes, and our responsibility to make things right, expanded with each box we uncovered. But something else emerged too. My grandmother's complete vision for ethical urban development, decades ahead of its time. This is remarkable, Sarah said, reviewing the plans. Mixed income housing, green spaces, small business initiatives, cultural preservation. She had it all mapped out. And now we'll build it. I decided, exactly as she planned, starting here. Over the next several hours, we laid out my grandmother's documents across the construction site's planning room. A blueprint emerged not just for buildings, but for community restoration on a scale Boston hadn't seen in decades. My phone buzzed constantly. Diana coordinating with legal teams across states. The foundation launching outreach programs. Contractors adjusting plans to match my grandmother's vision. Media requesting interviews about the discoveries. Julia, Michael called, holding up a sealed envelope. You need to see this. The envelope, dated just days before her death, contained my grandmother's last letter to me. My dearest Julia, if you're reading this, you found what I had to hide. Your father's crimes run deep, but your strength runs deeper. I've watched you grow, seen your heart for justice and your mind for business. You are my true heir, not just to my properties, but to my vision of what this city could be. Build it right, my darling. Build it for everyone. Love, Alexandra Rose Montgomery. As I read her words, surrounded by the evidence of both destruction and potential rebirth, I finally understood the full weight of my grandmother's legacy and the true purpose of my 3-year journey to reclaim it. We'll need to expand the foundation, Sarah suggested. Create dedicated teams for each community restoration project. Michael nodded. And establish a legal aid fund for displaced families seeking restitution. Your grandmother, my father said softly, would be proud, not just of what you've reclaimed, but of what you're building. I looked at him, this broken man who'd chosen power over purpose, and felt not triumph, but determination. Help us find them, I said. Every family you displaced, every business you destroyed. Help us make it right. He met my eyes for the first time in weeks. Where do we start? With the truth, I replied. All of it. As the sun set over the construction site, casting long shadows across the foundations of what would become my grandmother's vision realized, I thought about legacy. Not the false legacy of power and profit that my father had pursued, but the true legacy of building something meaningful, something that lifted people up instead of tearing them down. The Sullivan Empire had fallen, but from its ruins, the Montgomery vision would rise, stronger, truer, and built to last. Not just for profit, but for people. Not just for power, but for purpose. Not just for now, but for generations to come.
The clapping had just started when a loud screech came from the microphone. It cut through the happiness like a sharp knife. You're embarrassing this family. A deep voice shouted across the stadium. It was my Uncle Justin. His voice boomed as he stood near the microphone, holding it tightly like it had done something wrong. Before I could react, he spoke again. Before we start, leave a comment. What would you do in this moment? Be honest. I really want to know. We read every single comment. I couldn't move. I stood still, frozen. My graduation cap sat slightly crooked on my head as I slowly turned toward the voice. Uncle Justin was gripping the mic hard. His face was red with anger. She cleaned toilets to pay for this degree, he shouted. Some people in the audience laughed, especially in the section where most of my family sat. My Aunt Anna covered her laugh with a fake cough. My cousin Tyler looked amused, like he was watching a funny TV show. And now she thinks she deserves applause? He added with a loud, mocking laugh. Still, I said nothing. I didn't blink. I didn't cry. My hands shook a little as I held my graduation folder, but it wasn't from fear. It was from strength. I was trying hard to keep my emotions under control. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Just as Uncle Justin opened his mouth to say something else, the dean stepped forward and gently raised his hand. His voice was calm as he said, "We have a special guest with us today." The crowd got quiet. People looked around, confused. Then came a sound, shoes walking on the shiny floor. Click, click, click. I knew those footsteps. When I turned to look, I saw him. He was wearing a dark suit. His silver cufflinks caught the light. He looked strong and confident with every step he took. It was my husband, Henry Thomas. He's the CEO of one of the fastest growing investment companies on the East Coast. The crowd gasped. Uncle Justin stepped back, as if he had just been pushed. Henry walked up to me, took my hand gently, and then turned to face the crowd. His voice was deep and clear. She didn't just clean toilets, he said. She worked every single day and night. While many people gave up after just one failed exam, she kept going. She never asked for help. And in that moment, the whole room changed. My past didn't matter. What mattered was that I had worked hard, and I had made it. And now, everyone could see it. She earned this, Henry said clearly, looking straight at the crowd. This woman, my wife, graduated at the top of her class in biochemistry. And she did it while working 3 jobs and helping take care of her disabled neighbor. The room went completely quiet. You could feel the air change. The laughter stopped. The smiles faded. My Aunt Anna's mouth hung open. My cousin Tyler looked like he had swallowed his own laugh. His face turned red. Henry turned to me, gently took my hand, and kissed it. Then he leaned closer and whispered in my ear, "Let's show them what real success looks like." That's when I smiled for the first time in a long while. But that moment on stage was just the beginning. My family had laughed at me for years. They had called me names, made jokes about where I came from, and acted like I would never become anything. But now, I was done staying quiet. We walked off the stage hand in hand, but I could feel the stares behind me. Every eye in that room followed us. The ceremony went on. People threw their caps in the air. Cameras flashed. People cheered. But I didn't hear any of it. All I could see were their shocked faces. And I wasn't finished with them. Not yet. Outside the building, the family came toward us fast, like angry bees. Uncle Justin led the way. His face was red, and he looked like he was ready to shout. He didn't wait. "What kind of game are you playing, Laura?" he said loudly. "You marry some rich guy and think that makes your past disappear?" I turned around slowly. My voice was calm, steady. "And who do you think I really am, Uncle Justin?" I asked. "A janitor," he snapped. "A nobody. A girl from the gutter. You cleaned bathrooms in high school. You lived in a trailer, remember?" I didn't react. But Henry stepped in beside me. His jaw was tight, and his eyes were serious. "I chose her," he said in a cold, clear voice. "Not because of where she came from, but because of what she went through and how she rose above it." Uncle Justin laughed, but it was a dry, bitter laugh. "You think her sad little story makes her important?" "I know it does," Henry said sharply. "And just so you know about that trailer, she bought the land under it. She fixed it up. She rents it out now. She owns 3 properties, including a duplex in Hartford. You could hear a pin drop. No one spoke. Their silence was louder than their insults. Henry looked around and added, "While you were laughing at her, she was working. While you were mocking her, she was investing." Then Aunt Anna spoke, voice shaking. "You're lying. She's pretending." Laura was always the weak one. But now, they could all see the truth. I wasn't the weak one anymore. I looked straight into her eyes. "Was I really the weak one?" I asked. "Because I remember you calling Mom selfish when she got sick. I remember being only 15 years old, cleaning motel floors just to pay for her insulin. While I was working, you were taking trips to Hawaii." Aunt Anna's face turned pale. "That's not true," she began. But I kept going. "You stood at her funeral and said, 'She should have tried harder to stay alive.'" My voice shook a little, but I didn't look away. "You laughed at me when I said I was applying for college. You all laughed." No one said a word. Then Henry, my husband, quietly pulled out his phone. "I think it's time everyone here sees what you've all been doing while making fun of my wife," he said. He tapped play. A video started playing on his screen. It was security camera footage from a country club. First, Uncle Justin was seen slipping a gold watch into his jacket pocket. Next, Aunt Anna yelling at a waiter. Then my cousin Tyler passed out in his car with a DUI ticket on the dashboard. The crowd gasped. "Did you really think having money would protect you from the truth?" Henry asked. His voice was calm but firm. "We're not here to fight. But you need to understand something." He stepped closer to them. "She doesn't need to prove anything to people who could never survive what she's been through." I looked at Uncle Justin. His face was frozen, eyes wide. "You tried to embarrass me in front of everyone today," I said. "You wanted me to feel small. But I don't. Not even a little. Because the girl who once cleaned toilets is now the woman who owns your mortgage." Justin blinked fast. "What?" "I bought your house last month," I said. "Through a holding company. You'll see it on your next payment notice." He looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. "Laura," he whispered. "You wouldn't do that." I smiled, but I wasn't done. He went pale. His mouth opened, then closed again like he couldn't speak. Aunt Anna grabbed her necklace like she had seen a ghost. Tyler stepped backward, trying to disappear. "You bought my house." Uncle Justin's voice cracked. "That's not legal. That can't be legal." Henry stepped in again. His voice was smooth and clear. "It's perfectly legal," he said. "You missed payments on your second mortgage months ago. Laura made the highest offer through a company with a different name, because she knew you'd never sell to her directly." Aunt Anna's voice was weak now. "But why? Why would you do something like this to your own family?" I looked at her calmly. "Because while you were tearing me down," I said, "I was building my future. And now I'm standing in it." I slowly tilted my head and looked at them. "You want to know what kind of person I am?" I said. "I'm the kind of person who begged you all to stop making fun of me for 11 years. And every time, you laughed in my face. I'm the kind of person who watched my mother die while you were drinking champagne just 4 miles away. You didn't even answer your phones when I called for help. I'm the one who cleaned motel bathrooms so we could afford medicine. And while I did that, you told people I was chasing silly dreams." Henry reached over and gently held my hand. "You said I was an embarrassment to the family," I went on. "But the truth is, you are the ones bringing shame. Not because you're hurt, but because you're empty inside. You hurt others because it's the only thing that makes you feel important." Aunt Anna's lips were shaking now. She looked like she might cry. Tyler suddenly snapped. "Where are you going with this? You made your point. What now? You just walk away after embarrassing us." I turned to him, my eyes calm but firm. "No," I said. "You embarrassed me for years. Today, I'm walking away from your version of the story. I'm done living under the picture of me you made up. I'm taking back control of my own story." More people were now gathering near the gates, former classmates, teachers, and guests who had seen the whole thing unfold. Some whispered to each other, watching closely. "Let's go to the car," I said, brushing my graduation gown behind me as I turned. But then, a black car rolled up. It wasn't Henry's usual car. It was a simple, elegant Rolls-Royce. The car stopped and a driver stepped out. He walked to the back door and opened it. Out stepped an older woman with kind eyes and a walking cane. Her presence was strong, even though she moved slowly. "Grandma?" Tyler said, sounding shocked. She gave them all a long, quiet look. Then she sighed. "I stayed quiet for too long," she said softly. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. She walked up to me and handed it over. "I changed my will last year," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Aunt Anna gasped. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I gave Laura control of everything," my grandmother said calmly. "The land, the business shares, the savings. All of it. I watched all of you laugh at her, while she worked harder than anyone. You all thought Laura was the failure in this family. But she's the only reason we even have a chance to make things right." Uncle Justin stepped forward, but Grandma lifted her cane like a sword. "Don't," she warned, her voice strong now. "You've taken enough from her already." And just like that, everything had changed. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside, there was a signed legal document and a set of keys. Grandma looked at me with soft eyes and said, "This is for the house by the lake. Your mother's favorite place. It's yours now." I held the keys in my hand, feeling the weight of everything they meant. Henry leaned in and whispered, "This is the moment they realize they never broke you." I took one last deep breath. Then I turned to face them all, looking each person in the eye. "This isn't revenge," I said clearly. "This is me taking back what's mine. I'm not here to ruin you. I'm just done pretending you ever mattered." And with that, I turned my back on them. Behind me, I could hear it. The silence, the whispers, the sound of regret. It was like something inside them had cracked open. The world they built, where they always looked down on me, was falling apart. Our footsteps on the pavement echoed louder than all their noise. It felt like the end of a long, painful story, like a drum roll at the end of a play that no one would ever dare to perform again. We reached the car. Henry opened the door for me and gave a small nod, like saying it's over now. But just before I stepped inside, I stopped. I turned back one last time. Even though I had said everything I needed to say, I could still see it in their faces. They didn't understand the full truth. They thought all of this was about the money, the fancy car, my husband, or the property I had been given. They still didn't get it. So I walked back toward them, slow and steady. Uncle Justin stood stiff, like he was made of stone. His pride had taken a hit, and he didn't know what to say. Aunt Anna was wiping her eyes, trying to look like she was the victim now that the power had shifted away from her. Tyler had crossed his arms. His jaw was tight, and his eyes were cold. He still believed he could talk his way out of this, like always. I looked at them and spoke softly, but clearly enough for everyone to hear. "You know what hurt the most?" I said. "It wasn't how you made fun of me. It wasn't how you laughed when I came home from work smelling like bleach and sweat. It was how every time I achieved something, no matter how small, you said I didn't earn it. You called it luck. You said it was cute. You said it wouldn't last. Because it embarrassed you." Uncle Justin hissed. "You came to family dinners in that old work uniform, acting like working 4 jobs was normal." "I was normal," I said. "You just couldn't stand to see someone rise without your approval." And with that, I turned for the last time, free. I cut in, my voice stronger now. "You were the ones pretending, not me." They looked at me, confused. "You maxed out your credit cards just to look rich at the country club. You hid your money problems behind fake business names. Justin, you've refinanced your house 6 times. Tyler, you sold your car for crypto and told everyone it was a smart business move. Anna, you even borrowed my student loan refund to pay for Botox and called it an investment in your public image." Their mouths dropped open again. But this time, I wasn't just speaking with emotion. I was showing them the truth. I was holding up a mirror. "You created this story where I was the sad one, the failure, the one you had to feel sorry for. You told everyone I was just a charity case. But I was the only one who wasn't lying. Silence filled the space between us. Then I turned to my grandmother. For a long time, I said, I believed being quiet meant I was mature. I thought staying humble would make you all respect me. But it didn't. It only made me smaller in your eyes. I looked at them again, my voice calm. I'm done shrinking so you can feel tall. Tears filled my grandmother's eyes. I should have spoken up years ago, she whispered. I shook my head gently. You're speaking now, I said. That's enough. Suddenly, Anna stepped forward. Laura, wait, she said. Her voice was shaky. Maybe we misunderstood you. Maybe we can talk. I stared at her for a long second. Now you want to talk? I asked. She hesitated. We're family, she said softly. That word hit me hard. Not with warmth, but like a cold slap. No, I said, steady and firm. We're relatives. That's not the same thing. Then I turned around and walked back toward the car without looking back. Henry was already there. He opened the door for me, and I stepped inside. The door shut behind me with a quiet click, like the final page of a long, painful chapter. Inside the car, everything was still. Henry reached over and gently held my hand. His thumb moved slowly over my knuckles. It was soft, calm, a quiet promise that the storm was over. You okay? He asked. I nodded, but there was a lump in my throat I had to swallow first. Yeah, I said. I'm just realizing something. What's that? He asked. For so long, I thought proving them wrong would make me feel better, I said. But it doesn't. What really feels good is knowing I never became like them. Henry smiled, that slow, proud smile he always had when he looked at me. And just like that, I finally felt free. When I surprised him that day, Henry smiled. You've become someone stronger, he said. Someone unstoppable. As the car pulled away from the curb, I glanced back one last time. My so-called family stood there, quiet and pale. Their proud faces were now filled with shock. Everything they believed about me had fallen apart. But I didn't care anymore. In front of us, the road stretched wide and open, full of promise. I rolled down the window and let the wind blow through my hair. It felt cool and fresh, like a deep breath after holding it for far too long. For the first time in years, I felt free. No more shrinking myself to fit in. No more silence to keep the peace. No more shame that didn't belong to me in the first place. 3 weeks later, I stood barefoot in my mother's old lake house, now legally mine. The morning sun poured through the tall windows, shining across the wooden floor. Outside, the lake sparkled with soft waves, and a light breeze moved the curtains like a quiet memory. I hadn't cried the day I stood up for myself. I had been too full of strength, too focused on moving forward. But I cried that morning. Not because I was sad. Not because I felt broken. I cried because I felt whole. After years of feeling invisible, after years of hard work, pain, and being looked down on, I was finally standing in a place that felt like home. Not just by law, but in my heart and soul. Henry came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. You didn't just survive them, Laura, he whispered. You turned every wound, every insult, into something beautiful. I leaned into him. It doesn't even feel real, I said quietly. It is, he replied. Just then, we heard a knock at the front door. I slowly stepped away from Henry and opened it. It was Grandma. She stood there with her cane in one hand and a soft smile on her face. Did I catch you at a bad time? She asked gently. Never, I said, smiling as I hugged her tightly. She walked slowly into the house, her eyes moving around the cozy living room. Your mother loved this place, she said. She'd be so proud of you. I felt a lump in my throat again and swallowed hard. I hope so, I said quietly. She would, Grandma said firmly. Then she looked me in the eye. And Laura, I want to apologize. You don't have to, I replied. I do, she said, her voice steady. I should have spoken up a long time ago. And in that moment I knew something else too. I was finally seen. I watched them treat you badly, Grandma said quietly. I watched you carry weight a girl your age should never have had to carry. And I stayed quiet because I didn't want to cause problems. She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. But that silence, it cost you. And it cost me my peace. I hugged her again, this time tighter. Thank you for speaking up now, when it really matters. I should have done it sooner, she whispered. But just know, you were never truly alone. Not in my heart. Later, we sat out on the back deck. The three of us, me, Grandma, and Henry, drank warm coffee while the sunlight danced on the lake. The water sparkled like little stars, and the breeze felt like a soft song in the air. That afternoon, a courier arrived with a thick envelope, delivered by hand. I opened it carefully. Inside were legal papers, confirming that I now owned Uncle Justin's house. I had already filed for the transfer a week before, knowing his grace period was almost over. Holding that envelope, I knew I had the power to evict him. I could have taken everything. He had tried to ruin me in front of everyone, and now I had the chance to return the pain. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up my phone and called him. He answered slowly, his voice unsure. Laura, he said. I'm giving the house back, I said calmly. But under one condition. There was silence on the line. I want an apology, I said. A real one. Not in private. Not whispered behind closed doors. I want it in front of the same people who laughed at me with you. I want them to hear the truth, that I was never the disgrace. He hesitated, his voice shaking. Why would you do that? After everything, why? Because I don't want to become like you, Justin, I said. Bitter. Angry. Always looking for someone to blame. I didn't fight to hurt you. I fought to rise above you. He said nothing. I'll expect that apology by Friday, I added and hung up. Henry turned to me, his eyes wide with surprise. You're just giving him the house back? He asked. I nodded. I'm giving back the house, I said. Not the power. I still have that. But I'm choosing peace. That Friday, we attended a family brunch hosted by another relative. The room was full of familiar faces. Laughter filled the air, but it quieted when Uncle Justin stood up. He looked nervous. His face was red, and his hands shook slightly. He looked straight at me. I mocked Laura, he said, when she should have been celebrated. I tried to hide her strength because I was ashamed of my own weakness. And today, in front of all of you, I want to say, he paused, swallowed hard, then said the words I thought I'd never hear. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Uncle Justin said, his voice quiet but clear. You're not a disgrace, Laura. You're the only one in this family who never pretended to be someone she wasn't. The room went completely silent. No one spoke. Aunt Anna blinked back tears, clearly unsure of what to say. My cousin Tyler looked down at the floor. He couldn't even meet my eyes. I didn't speak. I didn't smile or nod. I simply stood up and walked out. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted to make a scene, but because I didn't need their claps or their pity or their approval. I didn't want revenge either. They would remember that moment for the rest of their lives. That was enough for me. Months passed. Life changed in beautiful ways. I started my own research foundation. I named it after my mom. It would help girls like me, girls who worked hard, who were overlooked, but who had dreams bigger than anyone could see. Henry and I traveled more. We laughed more. We finally slept without worry. We built a peaceful, joyful life, far away from the shadows I used to live in. Some nights, I would sit by the window and think about everything that happened. My graduation, the loud microphone, the laughter, the shame I felt in front of everyone. And I would smile, because that girl, the one who once cleaned toilets to help her sick mother, was now giving out scholarships to help other girls rise. Because that woman, the one who was mocked in public, was now someone people talked about with respect and quiet awe. They had tried to tear me down. They laughed, doubted, and pushed me aside. But every time they tried to break me, they only taught me how to rebuild. Stronger, smarter, braver. And the next time someone tried to tell me I didn't belong, I wouldn't be scared. I would look them in the eye and say, No. You just didn't recognize who I was becoming. Because I knew who I was now. And no one, not even my family, could take that away from me again. I don't want him here. This is supposed to be a perfect party. Jacqueline shouted across her big, fancy backyard. Her voice was loud enough that everyone turned to look at us. My 10-year-old son, Peter, grabbed my hand tightly. In his other hand, he held a small wrapped present he had picked out carefully for his cousin Mary. My name is Lauren, and I never thought I'd see the day my sister-in-law would humiliate my child in front of so many people. Peter has cerebral palsy. He uses a walker to help him move around. But even with his challenges, he is one of the kindest, smartest, most thoughtful children you'll ever meet. He loves to make others smile. He had been looking forward to this party all week. He even helped wrap the gift and wrote Mary's name in his best handwriting. "Jacqueline, he's your nephew," I said quietly, trying to stay calm. "He just wants to give Mary her birthday present." "I don't care," she snapped, flipping her shiny hair over her shoulder and waving her hand in the air. "Look around. These are important people from our neighborhood. I can't have him here." Then she leaned in and hissed, "He'll ruin the look of everything with that walker. What will people think?" I felt Peter shaking next to me. My heart sank. The other parents were watching. A few were pulling out their phones. I knew they were recording. Mary stood nearby in her sparkly princess dress, frozen with a confused and sad look on her face. "It's okay, Mommy," Peter whispered. His voice was small and trembling. "We can just go home." In that moment, something changed inside me. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt clear. For 6 years, I had tried to keep peace with Jacqueline. I had stayed silent when she made little jokes about Peter. I didn't say anything when she forgot to invite us to parties or when she said things like, "I could never deal with a child like that." I always told myself it was better not to cause trouble. But not this time. "You're right, sweetheart," I told Peter softly. "We're going home." Then I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I had recorded everything, from the moment we walked in and Jacqueline gave us that fake smile, to her yelling at us in front of everyone. My husband had suggested I start doing that months ago. He had seen Jacqueline's attitude. He had felt the coldness. Now I had proof. I didn't say another word to her. I just looked her in the eye and said, "Thank you for showing everyone who you really are." Then I held Peter's hand and walked away, proud and unshaken. Jacqueline's face lost all its color the moment she saw the phone in my hand. Her eyes widened, and I could tell she knew exactly what I had recorded. She looked nervous. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just stared straight into her eyes and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. And don't worry about what people will think, because now they'll see everything." Then I took Peter's hand, held it gently, and stood up tall. I was proud of how calm I felt. Jacqueline's eyes narrowed as she noticed me stop the recording. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "Just making memories," I answered with a soft voice. Then I turned to little Mary, who stood nearby in her sparkly dress, still confused about what was happening. "Mary, sweetie, Peter brought you a present. He chose it just for you." I handed the nicely wrapped box to her. She smiled and quickly came over to grab it. Before she could say anything, she gave Peter a small hug that made his face light up. But then Jacqueline rushed forward and pulled her back with a tight grip. "Get out," Jacqueline whispered through clenched teeth. "And don't even think about sharing that video." I smiled slightly and helped Peter turn his walker around. I looked at her one last time and said quietly, "You know, Jacqueline, the best moments in life aren't always the ones we plan. Sometimes they're the ones that show who people really are." As we walked away, I could hear voices behind us. People were whispering. One mother even called out, "Let him stay. It's her party too." But I didn't turn around. I didn't say another word. I just kept walking, holding my son's hand, feeling calm and strong. Because this wasn't about getting back at Jacqueline. It wasn't about making a big scene. It was about showing Peter that no one, not even a family member, could take away his worth. He needed to see that he deserved love, respect, and kindness no matter what. When we got into the car, Peter sat quietly. I buckled him in and for a few moments, there was silence. Then, in a small voice, he asked, "Mommy, why doesn't Aunt Jacqueline like me?" I turned in my seat and looked at his sad little face. His brown eyes were full of questions. "Sweetheart," I said softly, brushing his hair from his forehead, "some people only care about how things look on the outside. They forget what's really important, like how kind and strong you are. But never forget this. You are perfect just the way you are." That night, Peter played with his Legos on the floor while I sat at my desk, staring at my phone. The video I had taken was still there. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wasn't sure what to do next. But one thing I did know, I had stood up for my son, and that mattered more than anything. Jerry, my husband and Peter's stepdad, sat down beside me. We watched the video together. I could see the anger slowly build on his face as Jacqueline's cruel voice played again. Her words were cold, sharp, and hard to hear. After a moment of silence, Jerry turned to me and said, "You should post it. Not to get revenge or embarrass her, but because kids like Peter need to know they're not alone. And people like Jacqueline need to learn they can't treat others this way anymore." I looked at him and nodded slowly. He was right. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. I didn't want to write anything angry or mean. I didn't want to attack Jacqueline. I just wanted to tell the truth, clearly and simply. So I wrote a short message. I explained what had happened at the birthday party. I wrote about a kind little boy who brought a gift for his cousin but was told to leave, not because he did anything wrong, but because he used a walker. Because someone decided he didn't look right for their idea of a perfect party. When I finished, I looked at Jerry and asked, "Are you sure we should share this?" He looked over at Peter, who was sitting on the floor nearby, happily building a Lego castle. Then he looked back at me and said, "Sometimes doing the right thing is hard, but it's still the right thing." So I took another deep breath and pressed the post button. Then I closed the laptop and tried not to overthink it. I didn't know what would happen next. I just hoped someone out there would understand why I shared our story. The next morning, everything changed. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing again and again. The screen was filled with messages, likes, and comments. The video had gone viral overnight. Over 500,000 people had shared it, and the number kept rising every few minutes. I sat up in bed, shocked. My heart was racing. People from all over the world were writing to me. Parents of children with disabilities shared their own stories. Some said they had felt alone until they saw our video. Others thanked me for standing up for my son. Disability groups and advocates were offering their support. Even teachers, doctors, and other moms wrote messages saying how wrong Jacqueline's actions were. Then I heard a small voice from the living room. "Mom, look, we're on TV." I rushed out and saw Peter sitting in front of the television, eyes wide with excitement. A local news station was showing our story. They played clips from our video and even included other recordings from parents who had filmed the moment too. I sat beside Peter, hugged him close, and thought, this wasn't just our story anymore. It belonged to everyone who believed in kindness, respect, and standing up for what's right. The headline on the TV screen said, "Local birthday party turns into national conversation about disability discrimination." My phone buzzed again. It was ringing nonstop. I picked up one call. It was my mother-in-law, Catherine. "Lauren, I just saw the news," she said, her voice shaking. I had no idea Jacqueline could be so cruel. "I'm so sorry. Is Peter all right?" Before I could answer her, another call came in. This time it was Jacqueline. I didn't answer. A moment later, text messages from her started flooding in. "Take it down now. You're ruining my reputation. People are canceling playdates with Mary. How could you do this to your own family?" Jerry walked over and gently placed a hand on my shoulder. He looked at the phone and read the texts. Then he shook his head slowly. "She still doesn't understand," he said quietly. "It's not about Peter. It's not about Mary. It's not even about what's right. She only cares about how she looks to other people." Just then the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see Mary standing there. She had tears rolling down her cheeks. In her small hands, she held the gift Peter had given her, a custom storybook. It was about a princess who discovers that her true hero is her cousin. Mary didn't say anything at first. She just stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug. Then she looked up at me with watery eyes and said softly, "She uses a walker too." I was confused for a second, then I understood. She had read the book. "I opened it this morning," she said. "Can I play with Peter, please? Mommy's been crying and yelling at her phone all day." My heart felt full. I knelt down beside her and smiled warmly. "Of course, sweetie. You can play with him any time you want." I paused and asked gently, "Does your mom know you're here?" Mary shook her head and pointed down the driveway. "Grandma brought me," she said. I looked out and saw Catherine's car parked by the curb. "She's too busy calling her lawyer," Mary added. I sighed, but not out of anger, just a deep breath to release the tension. I let Mary inside, and soon, she and Peter were laughing and playing on the living room floor like nothing had ever happened. Then my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen and was surprised. A well-known disability rights group had messaged me. They wanted to feature Peter in their next awareness campaign. I scrolled through more messages. Kind words, support, and encouragement filled my screen. And in that moment, watching my son smile and play, I knew kindness had already won. Local shops and small businesses in our town began reaching out to us. Many offered to host a special birthday party that included both Peter and Mary. Some even wanted to donate decorations, food, and games. What made it more special was that everything would be made easy and fun for kids of all abilities. Teachers from Mary's school also wrote to me. They asked how they could start teaching students about disability and kindness. They wanted to create a classroom where every child felt accepted and included. It was strange. Jacqueline's so-called perfect party, where she tried to keep up her image, had accidentally started something important. People weren't just gossiping, they were talking about real things. Things like respect, kindness, and how every child, no matter what they look like or how they move, should feel welcome. That same afternoon, Jerry's father, who usually stayed quiet, called and said we needed a family meeting. When we arrived at his house, Jacqueline was already sitting there. She looked very different, tired, her hair messy, makeup worn off. The flawless look she always tried to keep had faded. She didn't speak when we walked in. Mary didn't even look at her mother. She ran straight to Peter and hugged him tightly. Jacqueline held out her hand to stop her, but Mary ignored it. "This ends now," Jerry's father said firmly as he stood in front of the television. "Jacqueline, you will listen. No interrupting." Then he picked up the remote and hit play. The video from the party started playing. Everyone in the room was silent as Jacqueline's voice came through the speakers. We all heard the way she had spoken to Peter. We heard her say he would ruin the party. We heard her say, "What will people think?" I watched Jacqueline closely. As her words played back, her face changed. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Her lips tightened. Her skin looked pale, like the truth had finally hit her. She opened her mouth and said, "That's not. I didn't mean." Catherine, my mother-in-law, stopped her right away. "Yes, you did," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You've treated Peter like this for years. We all saw it. We just didn't want to believe it. But now we can't pretend anymore. Everyone has seen who you really are." Suddenly, Mary turned to her mom. "Is that why Henry from my class doesn't come over anymore?" she asked. "His brother uses a wheelchair. He said their mom thinks you don't like them." Jacqueline didn't say a word. She looked frozen. For the first time, it seemed like she really understood what she had done. But that moment wasn't the ending. It was the beginning of something better. A week later, the local community center called. They offered to host a Unity birthday party for both Peter and Mary. It would have fun, inclusive games and activities for every child, no matter their ability. And just like that, a day filled with pain became the start of a movement for love, kindness, and true acceptance. The response to the Unity Party was bigger than anything we had imagined. Over 300 families sent messages to say they were coming. People from all over town were excited to join in. It felt like the whole community was ready to come together and support something good, something that truly mattered. While this was happening, Jacqueline's life was turning upside down. Just weeks ago, she was known as the perfect mom on social media. She always posted pictures of her happy family, her clean house, and her carefully planned parties. But after the video went viral, that image fell apart. Parents started speaking up. Turns out, Peter wasn't the only child she had left out. More families shared their own stories. Some said their kids had never been invited to Jacqueline's parties or playdates. Others said she ignored them at school events or even made hurtful comments. Slowly, her fake image started to break, and people finally saw the truth. Then, on the morning of the Unity party, I heard a soft knock on my door. I opened it and was surprised to see Jacqueline standing there. She looked very different. Her usual perfect hairstyle and makeup were gone. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside and let her in. As she sat at the kitchen table, I glanced over at Peter. He was laughing in the living room, playing with new friends, kids who had never come to our house before the video was shared. Jacqueline looked around the room and said, "I lost my job." Her voice was shaky. The real estate company said they couldn't keep someone who treats disabled people unfairly.
They didn't want to be connected to me.
She wiped her eyes and continued. Mary's school called too. They said she might not be able to stay unless I finish sensitivity training. I handed her a cup of coffee and gently asked, "What are you here for, Jacqueline?" She looked toward Peter, still smiling with the other children. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I want to understand how I got things so wrong. Mary keeps asking why I'm so mean. She told me she's ashamed of me. She misses Peter." Then I saw something I never expected, real tears rolling down Jacqueline's cheeks. These weren't the fake ones she used for attention. These were honest. She took a deep breath. "The party today, could Mary come? And maybe I could help too. I know I messed up. I hurt people. But I want to change. I want to do better. For Mary, for Peter, for everyone I hurt." That afternoon, the Unity party took place, and it was everything Jacqueline's old party wasn't. Kids of all abilities ran, laughed, and played. There were ramps, swings, and fun games for everyone. No one felt left out. Smiles were everywhere. It was a day full of joy, kindness, and true unity. At the Unity party, something truly special happened. Peter gave a short speech. His voice trembled a little, and his hands shook, but he stood tall and proud. Every word he said came straight from his heart. He talked about how it felt to be left out, how important it is to be kind, and how happy he was to see so many kids playing together. By the time he finished, almost everyone in the crowd had tears in their eyes. Local news reporters came again, but this time they weren't there to report on a family argument. The story had changed. Now it was about hope, healing, and what can happen when people choose kindness over judgment. Jacqueline didn't try to be the center of attention. She stayed in the background, quietly helping clean up the park, passing out snacks, and watching with a soft smile as Mary and Peter showed other kids how to play games designed for all abilities. They laughed, shared, and made everyone feel welcome. It was clear that something had changed in her. That day changed our whole family. Jacqueline's old, perfect princess party, full of decorations and pictures for social media, couldn't compare to the love, joy, and real smiles we saw at the Unity party. It wasn't about how everything looked, it was about how everyone felt. And this time, everyone felt included. Months have gone by since that day. Jacqueline's path hasn't been easy, but she's really trying to grow. She signed up for disability awareness classes and now volunteers at the local children's hospital every weekend. She spends time with kids who use walkers, wheelchairs, and special tools, and she listens to their stories. Something else amazing happened too. Now, whenever there's a birthday party in the neighborhood, people get excited when they hear Jacqueline is hosting it. Her parties have become known for being the kindest and most fun, full of games and spaces where all kids feel welcome. Just last week, we had a big family dinner. While we were eating, Peter turned to Jacqueline and asked, "Can you help me with my science project? It's about adaptive technology." Jacqueline's face lit up with the biggest smile. But this time, it wasn't the fake smile she used to put on for photos. It was real. It was warm, honest, and full of love. Later that evening, while she helped clear the table, Jacqueline looked at me and said, "I used to care so much about making everything look perfect. But I miss the most beautiful moments, the ones that feel real." Peter taught me that being perfect isn't about how something looks. It's about how it makes people feel. The video from that painful day is still shared online. But now, there's a second video. It shows Jacqueline on stage at disability awareness events. She tells her story, admits her mistakes, and talks about how she's learning to be better. And right there in the front row sits Peter, clapping with pride and smiling at the aunt who finally sees him for who he truly is. And what about our family now? We're stronger than ever. Not because we're all the same, but because we've learned to love and accept our differences. Peter's walker isn't something we try to hide or feel shy about anymore. It's simply part of who he is, just like Mary's curly hair or Jerry's deep laugh. It doesn't make him less. In fact, it's a symbol of his strength and courage. Sometimes, the biggest changes in life come when we least expect them. What started as a painful and upsetting moment at a birthday party became something much more. That one day, filled with sadness and tears, became the beginning of something new. It changed not just Jacqueline, but all of us. Our families started listening to each other more. We became more open, more caring. Our neighbors paid attention too. They started talking about kindness, about fairness, and about including everyone, no matter what they look like or how they move. That one party helped open eyes and hearts across the neighborhood. Parents began teaching their kids to be more understanding. Teachers introduced lessons about respect and inclusion in their classrooms. Children started playing with those they had once ignored. People who used to be silent about unfair treatment began to speak up. Even Jacqueline, who once cared so much about keeping up appearances, became part of the change. She learned from her mistakes. She worked hard to become a better person. And we saw it day by day, choice by choice. The truth is, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. But what matters is what we do after. Jacqueline decided to grow. She didn't run away or make excuses. She stayed, listened, and tried to do better. Peter said it best in his recent school essay. His teacher asked the class to write about something important to them. Peter wrote, "My aunt used to think perfect meant everything had to look right. Now she knows perfect means everyone feels like they belong." When I read those words, I had to wipe away tears. He had captured something deep and true in such simple language. He had seen beyond the hurt and found the heart of it all, that being perfect isn't about looking good. It's about being kind. It's about making space for everyone. It's about love, respect, and belonging. And honestly, isn't that the kind of perfection we should all be trying to reach? Because real beauty doesn't come from fancy decorations or shiny pictures. It comes from the moments we share, the kindness we give, and the love we show, especially to those who need it most.
I'm hunched over my laptop at 2:47 a.m, updating a spreadsheet that would make any accountant weep with joy. Row 847. Cleaned vomit from bathroom floor after mum's medication reaction. Time logged, 23 minutes. Fair market rate for biohazard cleanup, $75 per hour. My name is Gwendolyn, and I've been documenting everything for 11 months, 3 weeks and 4 days. Gwen! Gwen! Mum's voice cuts through the house like a rusty blade. I need my pills. I save the spreadsheet, titled Services Rendered, and pad down the hallway in my slippers. The hardwood floors creak under my feet, a sound I've grown to hate. Everything in this house feels like it's falling apart, including me. Which pills, Mum? I ask, standing in her doorway. She's propped up in bed, looking perfectly capable of walking to the kitchen herself, but that's not how this works anymore. The white ones, for my stomach. The Tums are white, so are the calcium supplements and the... Don't be smart with me. Her voice sharpens. You know which ones I mean. I fetch 3 different bottles of white pills because I've learned it's easier than playing 20 questions. When I return, she's on her phone, scrolling through Facebook. Jayla posted the most beautiful pictures from her weekend in Napa, she says without looking up. Look at this wine tasting. Doesn't she look radiant? I set the pills on her nightstand. Which ones do you need? The Tums, obviously. She holds up her phone. Look at this dress she's wearing. Probably cost more than you make in a month. Used to make. I haven't worked in almost a year. She's living her best life, Mum continues. I'm so proud of her for not letting our situation hold her back. Our situation. As if Mum's recovery from gallbladder surgery was some natural disaster that happened to all of us equally. I'm going back to bed, I say. Wait. She grabs my wrist. Can you fluff my pillows? And maybe bring me some crackers? My stomach feels funny. I fluff the pillows. I bring crackers. I refill her water glass. I adjust the temperature. I close the curtains tighter. Each task gets logged in my mental spreadsheet, time-stamped and categorized. Back in my room, well, my childhood room that I moved back into, I update the file. Row 848. Midnight medication assistance and comfort services. Time, 18 minutes. My phone buzzes. A text from Jayla. Hey sis, hope you're hanging in there. I know it's been tough, but you're doing such important work. Mum and Dad are so lucky to have you. I wish I could be there more, but you know how crazy things are with Ashton's promotion and the wedding planning. Sending love. I stare at the message for a full minute. She wishes she could be there more. She lives 4 hours away and hasn't visited once since Mum's surgery. Not once, but she sends love and emojis. I don't respond. Instead, I screenshot the message and save it to a folder labelled Evidence. The next morning, I'm scrambling eggs when Dad walks into the kitchen, already dressed for work in his pressed khakis and polo shirt. Coffee's not ready, he says, like it's my fault the machine takes 5 minutes to brew. It'll be done in 2 minutes. He grunts and sits at the table, opening his newspaper. Your mother says you were short with her last night. I brought her everything she asked for. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. He doesn't look up from the sports section. Jayla called yesterday. She's worried about your attitude. My hand tightens on the spatula. Jayla called? She's concerned you're getting burned out. She thinks maybe you need to remember why you're here. Why I'm here? As if I chose this. As if I wasn't guilted into putting my entire life on hold because family comes first and Jayla has her own responsibilities. The eggs are ready, I say. Dad takes his plate without a thank you. Jayla's sending money for groceries this week, see? She contributes however she can. I know for a fact Jayla hasn't sent money. I handle all the household finances now, but I don't say anything. I just add it to my mental list. False claims about financial contributions. Later, while Mum naps and Dad's at work, my friend Bianca calls. How are you holding up? She asks. I'm fine. Gwen, come on, you sound exhausted. I am exhausted. I'm exhausted from being the only one who shows up. I'm exhausted from being treated like hired help instead of a daughter. I'm exhausted from watching my parents worship Jayla from afar while treating me like I'm invisible. They're going to expect you to do this forever, you know, Bianca says gently. Your mum's been cleared for normal activities for weeks now. I know. So when are you going home? When are you going back to your job? I don't answer because I don't know. Every time I bring up leaving, Mum suddenly has a setback. Dad reminds me that family takes care of family. Jayla sends a text about how grateful she is that I'm there, so she doesn't have to worry. You need to set boundaries, Bianca says. I will. When? Soon. After we hang up, I open my laptop and look at my spreadsheet. 847 rows of data. 11 months of documentation. Every task, every insult, every moment of being taken for granted, all carefully recorded with timestamps and fair market rates. I'm not just documenting my life anymore. I'm building a case, and something tells me I'm going to need it. 3 weeks later, I'm on my hands and knees at 3 a.m, scrubbing urine out of the bathroom grout with a toothbrush. Mum's accident happened because she didn't want to use her bedside commode, said it made her feel like an invalid. I'm so embarrassed, she whispers from the doorway, clutching her robe. It's fine, Mum. Accidents happen. You're such a good daughter. I don't know what I'd do without you. I keep scrubbing. The ammonia smell burns my nostrils, but I've learned that wearing gloves makes me look dramatic, according to Dad. Jayla called earlier, Mum says. She's planning to visit next month. Next month. Always next month with Jayla. That's nice. She sounded so stressed about work. That new marketing campaign is really taking a toll on her. I sit back on my heels. She sounded stressed? Oh yes, she was practically in tears talking about how guilty she feels for not being here more. She said she lies awake at night thinking about us. Funny. When I lie awake at night, it's usually because I'm cleaning up bodily fluids or listening for Mum's call bell. The next evening, Dad sets up his laptop for Jayla's weekly video call. It's become a family event. Mum gets her hair done, Dad puts on a clean shirt, and I'm expected to hover in the background like hired help. Jayla's face fills the screen, perfectly lit in what looks like a wine bar. Her hair is professionally styled, her makeup flawless. Hi everyone. She waves with manicured nails. Sorry I'm calling from dinner, but Ashton surprised me with reservations at this amazing place. You look beautiful, sweetheart, Mom gushes. Doesn't she look beautiful, Rhett? Gorgeous, Dad agrees. How's the wedding planning going? Oh my God, so stressful. Jayla's voice cracks slightly. I had a complete breakdown yesterday trying to choose between ivory and champagne for the table linens. I know it sounds silly, but everything has to be perfect, you know? Mum's face melts with sympathy. Oh, honey, you're putting so much pressure on yourself. I just want everything to be beautiful for our families. Jayla dabs at her eyes with a cloth napkin. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in decisions, and knowing you're going through recovery, Mum, while I'm over here obsessing about flowers, it makes me feel so selfish. Don't you dare feel selfish, Dad says firmly. You're building your future. That's exactly what you should be doing. I'm standing behind the couch watching this performance. Jayla's tears haven't smudged her mascara. Her voice trembles at all the right moments. I just wish I could do more, she continues. I know Gwen's been amazing, but I feel terrible that she's sacrificing so much while I'm living my life. Gwen understands, Mum says, not even glancing back at me. She knows how important your career is, and your wedding. We're so proud of you for not letting our situation derail your plans. I sent money for groceries last week, Jayla says. I know it's not much, but... Every little bit helps, Dad interrupts. You contribute in your own way. I clear my throat. Actually, I handle the grocery shopping and I haven't received... Gwen. Dad's voice cuts like ice. Let your sister finish. Jayla's eyes flick to me through the screen. For just a second her expression shifts. Calculating. Cold. Then the mask slides back into place. I was going to surprise you, she says quickly. I sent it to your Venmo, Gwen. Maybe it hasn't gone through yet? I check my phone. No Venmo notification, no pending transactions. Technology, Mum laughs. So unreliable. The call continues for another 20 minutes. Jayla talks about her yoga classes, her new skincare routine, Ashton's promotion. Mum and Dad hang on every word like she's delivering the State of the Union. When she finally hangs up, Mum sighs dreamily. She's glowing, she says. Absolutely glowing. Love looks so good on her. She's got a good head on her shoulders, Dad adds. Knows how to prioritise. I start clearing their coffee cups. You could learn something from your sister, Dad continues. She's building something meaningful with her life, making something of herself. What am I doing? The words slip out before I can stop them. Dad looks at me like I've asked why water is wet. You're helping family. It's temporary. Temporary. It's been almost a year. That night I update my spreadsheet. Row 891. Emergency bathroom sanitation 3 a.m. Time 47 minutes. Rate 85 hour for hazmat cleaning. Then I create a new entry. False claims about financial contributions during family video call. I screenshot Jayla's Venmo lie and save it to my evidence folder. My phone buzzes. A text from Jayla. Hope the Venmo went through. Let me know if you need the confirmation number. Love you. I screenshot that too. She's good. I'll give her that. She's very, very good, but I'm better at keeping records. I'm folding laundry in the hallway when I hear them talking in the kitchen. Their voices carry through the thin walls of this old house. She's been here almost a year, Dad says. When do you think she'll get the hint? What hint? Mum asks. That it's time to move on, get back to her own life. I freeze, a towel half folded in my hands. I don't know, Mum sighs. She seems comfortable here, maybe too comfortable. That's what I'm worried about. She's 30 next year. She should be building her own family, not hovering around ours. She's been helpful, though. Sure, but Jayla's right. We can't enable her forever. Once she leaves, maybe things can go back to normal around here. Normal, like I'm the disruption in their perfect life. I just worry she'll take it hard, Mum says. You know how sensitive she gets. She'll be fine. She's tougher than she acts. Besides, we raised her to be independent. Independent, right. That's why they guilt-tripped me into moving back home when Mum got sick. I drop the towel and walk to my room, closing the door as quietly as possible. My hands shake as I open my laptop and add a new entry to my spreadsheet. Overheard parents discussing my departure as burden relief. My phone rings. Bianca. Hey, want to grab coffee? I'm in your neighbourhood. I can't leave. Mum might need something. Gwen, your mum walked to the mailbox yesterday. I saw her. She's fine. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting across from Bianca at the coffee shop down the street. She slides a latte toward me. You look terrible, she says. Thanks, really what I needed to hear. I'm serious. When's the last time you did something for yourself? I can't remember. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're disappearing. She leans forward. Remember when you used to laugh, when you had opinions about things that weren't related to your parents' medical needs? This is temporary. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're being used. They're my parents. So, that doesn't give them the right to treat you like unpaid help while they worship Jayla from afar. I stir my latte, watching the foam swirl. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Explain why Jayla gets to live her life while you put yours on hold. Explain why they praise her for sending fake grocery money while you're literally wiping their floors. She has responsibilities. Bullshit. Bianca's voice cuts through my excuse. You know what she has? Boundaries. She says no, you don't. I can't just abandon them. Who's abandoning who here, Gwen? Because it sounds like they're already planning your exit. I tell her what I overheard. Bianca's face hardens. They want you gone, but they want it to be your idea so they don't look like the bad guys. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should... Don't. She grabs my hand. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking you're the problem. You gave up a year of your life for them. A year. And they're talking about you like you're a house guest who's overstayed her welcome. When I get home, Mum's on the couch watching TV. Where were you? She asks, without looking away from the screen. Coffee with Bianca. You could have told me. I was looking for you. What did you need? Nothing urgent. Just, it would be nice to know where you are. I sit on the opposite end of the couch. Mum, when do you think you'll be ready for me to go back to my apartment? She mutes the TV and turns to me. Are you unhappy here? It's not about being unhappy. It's about getting back to normal. Normal? She repeats the word like it tastes bitter. I suppose you're eager to get back to your old life. I miss my independence. Independence? Another bitter taste. Is that what Bianca's been filling your head with? This isn't about Bianca, isn't it? You come back from coffee with her and suddenly you're talking about leaving. Mum's voice takes on that wounded tone she's perfected. I thought we were closer than that. We are close, but I can't stay here forever. Forever? It's been less than a year. Jayla lived here until she was 25. Jayla was in college, then she was saving money for her own place. And what are you doing? Saving money? The question hits like a slap. I haven't been saving money. I've been spending my savings to help with household expenses while providing free labour. I need to think about my future, I say. Your future. Mum turns the TV back on, volume louder than before. Well, don't let us hold you back. That evening, I'm cleaning out old boxes in my room when I find a family photo from 5 years ago. We're all at Jayla's college graduation. She's centre stage in her cap and gown, beaming. Mum and Dad flank her, arms around her shoulders. I'm there too, but barely. Half my body is cropped out of the frame, like whoever took the photo forgot I existed. I stare at the image for a long time. Even in our family photos, I'm an afterthought. I take a picture of the photo with my phone and add it to my evidence folder. Then I update my spreadsheet with the day's events. Emotional manipulation regarding departure timeline and guilt tactics deployed when independence mentioned. My phone buzzes. A text from Jayla. Mum says you're thinking about moving out. Don't feel pressured. You're doing such important work there. I screenshot it and save it with the rest. She's good at this game. They all are. But I'm learning the rules. Mum's final doctor's appointment is on a Tuesday. I wake up at 6 a.m. to prep everything. Insurance cards, medication list, her comfortable shoes, a snack in case she gets dizzy, bottled water, tissues, and the cushion for the car seat because the regular seats hurt her back. "Did you remember my sweater?" she asks as I help her into the passenger seat. "It's in the back." "What about my phone charger?" "In your purse." "My reading glasses?" I point to the case clipped to her shirt. She's been cleared for normal activities for weeks, but these appointments still require the full production. At the doctor's office, I fill out the paperwork while she sits in the waiting room, scrolling through Facebook. The receptionist hands me a clipboard. "Are you the daughter?" she asks. "Yes." "You've been here for every appointment. That's so sweet." I smile and say nothing. What else would I say? That I'm here because no one else will be. Dr. Martinez calls us back. Mum grips my arm like she's walking into surgery instead of a routine follow-up. "Everything looks perfect, Margaret," he says, reviewing her chart. "Full recovery, no restrictions. You can resume all normal activities." "All activities?" Mum asks. "Everything. Driving, lifting, exercise, travel. You're completely healed." Mum nods, but her grip on my arm tightens. "Any questions?" Dr. Martinez asks. "What about heavy lifting?" I ask. She can lift whatever she could lift before surgery. No limitations. "Household chores?" "All fine." "Cooking?" "Margaret, you can do everything you did before. You're healthy." In the car, Mum stares out the window. "Good news," I say. "Yes, good news." But she doesn't sound happy. She sounds worried. That evening, Dad comes home with a bottle of champagne. "Celebration time," he announces. "Our girl is officially back to normal." He pops the cork and pours 3 glasses. We toast Mum's clean bill of health. "I'm so relieved," Mum says. "I was worried there might be complications." "The doctor said you're perfect," I remind her. "Doctors don't know everything." Dad raises his glass again. "To Margaret, and to Gwen for taking such good care of her mother." We drink. It should feel like a victory, but something's off. The celebration feels forced, like we're all pretending this is what we wanted. After dinner, I clean the kitchen while my parents watch TV. I load the dishwasher, wipe the counters, sweep the floor. The same routine I've done every night for 11 months. "Gwen," Mum calls from the living room, "can you bring me my pills?" "Which ones?" "The usual ones." I bring her pill organizer. She takes her vitamins, the same vitamins she could take herself. From the kitchen she could walk to herself, using the legs that work perfectly fine. "Thank you, sweetheart." I go back to cleaning. Dad joins me in the kitchen. "You've done a good job," he says, drying a wine glass. "Thanks." "Your mother's lucky to have you." "She's healthy now. She doesn't really need me anymore." Dad sets down the glass. "Well, she's used to having you around. Change is hard." "Change is part of recovery. Is it?" He looks at me directly. "Or is recovery about getting back to what works?" I don't answer. I just keep scrubbing the champagne glasses. Later, I take the trash out to the curb. Vienna, our neighbour, is watering her garden. "Hey Gwen," she calls over. "How's your mum doing?" "Great. Got the all clear from her doctor today." "That's wonderful. You must be so relieved." "Yeah." Vienna walks closer to the fence. You know, I've been watching you this whole year. Every morning, every evening, running errands, taking care of everything. You're a saint. Just doing what needs to be done. My daughter lives in Portland. When I had my hip replacement, she visited for a week, then went back to her life. Said I needed to learn to be independent again. Vienna laughs. I was mad at the time, but she was right, made me stronger. Everyone's different. True, but I hope your parents know how lucky they are. Not everyone would give up a year of their life like that. Back inside, I find Mum and Dad whispering in the kitchen. They stop when they see me. Everything okay? I ask. Fine, Dad says quickly, just talking about tomorrow's schedule. What's tomorrow? Nothing special, just normal stuff. Normal stuff, right. In my room, I open my laptop and stare at my spreadsheet. 1,247 rows of data. Nearly a year of my life, documented down to the minute. My phone pings with a notification. I've set up automatic calculations to run weekly, and the numbers have updated. Total hours logged, 3,247. Total value at fair market rates, $78,400. I stare at the number. $78,400. That's what this year cost me. Not just in lost wages, but in actual value provided. I screenshot the total and save it to a new folder labelled Final Calculation. Then I close the laptop and try to sleep, knowing tomorrow everything changes. I just don't know how yet. The next morning, Dad's waiting for me in the kitchen with his laptop open and a manila folder beside his coffee cup. Sit down, Gwen. We need to talk. Mum shuffles in wearing her robe, even though it's almost noon. She sits across from me, avoiding eye contact. What's this about? I ask. Dad opens the folder and slides a printed document across the table. We've been thinking about your situation here. I look down at the paper. It's an itemised list, typed in Dad's precise font. Room and board for 11 months, I read aloud. Utilities, groceries, household supplies. I scan down the list. What is this? It's what you owe us, Dad says matter-of-factly, for your stay here. The numbers blur as I read them. Rent, $800 per month. Utilities, $150 per month. Food, $400 per month. Miscellaneous household expenses, $200 per month. 11 months at $1,550 per month, Dad continues, plus initial setup costs for converting the guest room back to your old room. Total, $12,935. I stare at the paper. You're billing me. We're asking you to contribute fairly to the household expenses you've incurred. Incurred? I repeat the words slowly. I incurred these expenses. You've been living here rent-free for almost a year, Mum says quietly. We've been covering all your costs. While I took care of you. That was your choice, Dad says. No one forced you to move back home. My hands start shaking. I set the paper down carefully. My choice. We appreciate everything you've done, Mum adds quickly. But now that I'm better, it's time to settle accounts and move forward. Dad's laptop chimes. An incoming video call. Jayla's name appears on the screen. Perfect timing, Dad says, accepting the call. Jayla's face fills the screen. She's in what looks like a coffee shop, perfectly made up as always. Hi everyone, Dad said you wanted to talk about Gwen's transition back to independence. We just showed her the accounting, Dad says, turning the laptop so Jayla can see me. Oh, good. Jayla's smile is bright and supportive. I think this is so healthy. Gwen, you've been amazing this whole year, but it's time for you to get back to your own life, right? I look at her through the screen. You think I should pay them $12,935? Well, you have been living there rent-free, and Mum and Dad have been supporting you financially while you took time off work. Time off work to take care of Mum? Right, but that was still your choice. No one asked you to quit your job. I didn't quit. I took a leave of absence to be Mum's caregiver. Same thing, Jayla says with a little laugh. The point is, you chose to prioritise family over income. That's beautiful, but it doesn't mean Mum and Dad should subsidise that choice indefinitely. Dad nods approvingly. Exactly. We've all made sacrifices this year. What sacrifices did you make? I ask Jayla. Her smile flickers. Emotional sacrifices. Do you know how hard it's been for me, knowing I couldn't be there? The guilt I've carried? The guilt. Yes, I've been in therapy dealing with it. That's a sacrifice too. I look around the table, at Dad with his itemised bill, at Mom with her guilty expression, at Jayla on the screen with her perfect makeup and her therapy bills. I anticipated this, I say calmly. Dad raises an eyebrow. Anticipated what? I stand up and walk to my room. They follow me with their voices. Gwen, don't be dramatic, Mum calls. We can work out a payment plan, Dad adds. I return with my laptop and set it on the kitchen table. You anticipated what? Jayla asks through the screen. I open my laptop and navigate to my spreadsheet. This conversation. The screen fills with rows and rows of data, dates, times, tasks, hourly rates. What is that? Mum asks. My records. Dad leans forward, squinting at the screen. Records of what? Everything. I scroll down slowly, letting them see the scope. Every task I performed, every service I provided, every hour I worked. Worked? Jayla's voice comes through the speakers. Gwen, you weren't working. You were helping family. Was I? I click to the summary tab. Because according to fair market rates for home healthcare, personal assistance, housekeeping, meal preparation, transportation services, and medical support, I provided $78,400 worth of services this year. The kitchen goes silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. That's ridiculous, Dad says finally. Is it? You want to charge me market rate for room and board? I'm charging market rate for services rendered. You can't be serious, Mum whispers. I look at each of them in turn. You want $12,935 from me. I want $78,400 from you. Gwen, this is insane, Jayla says from the screen. You can't bill your own family. Why not? You just did. Dad closes my laptop. This is emotional manipulation. No, I say, opening it again. This is accounting. I click print. The printer in Dad's office starts humming. I'm giving you two options, I say, as I walk to collect the pages. Option 1, you tear up your bill, I tear up mine, and I leave today, forever. I return with a thick stack of printed pages and set them next to Dad's single sheet. Option 2, you pay my bill in full and I'll consider paying yours. Mum starts crying. Gwen, please, this isn't who you are. I look at her tear-streaked face. You're right. The person I was would have paid your bill and apologised for being a burden. I close my laptop and pick up my invoice. But that person is gone. Dad picks up my printed invoice with shaking hands. The pages flutter as he flips through them. Wound care assistance, $45 per hour, he reads aloud. Medication management, $35 per hour. Transportation to medical appointments, $25 per hour plus mileage. Those are standard healthcare rates, I say. I researched them thoroughly. Bathroom sanitation, Mum reads over his shoulder, her voice getting higher. Biohazard cleanup, $85 per hour. That's what professional cleaning services charge for bodily fluid cleanup. I have receipts for the supplies I bought. Jayla's voice crackles through the laptop speakers. Gwen, this is absolutely insane. You can't seriously expect. I can, and I do. I turn the laptop toward me. You want to talk about market rates? Let's talk about market rates. I scroll to a specific section of my spreadsheet. Live-in healthcare aid, $200 per day. I was here 365 days. That's $73,000 right there before we even get to the specialised services. Specialised services? Dad's voice is barely a whisper. Emergency response. I got up 17 times in the middle of the night for various crises. Emergency healthcare response is billed at premium rates. I click to another tab. Then there's the emotional labour. Therapy dogs charge $50 per hour for comfort services. I provided significantly more emotional support than a therapy dog. You're our daughter, Mum shouts. Daughters don't charge their parents for love. Love? I look at her directly. Is that what you call sending me a bill for living here while I took care of you? That's different. How? Because you chose to be here. Did I? Or was I guilted into it? I pull out my phone and scroll through old text messages. Here's what you texted me when you got out of surgery. The doctors say I need full-time care. Jayla can't leave her job. You're the only one who can help us. Please don't abandon me when I need you most. I show them the screen. Does that sound like a choice? Dad sets down my invoice. Even if we wanted to pay this ridiculous amount, we don't have $78,000. Then we have a problem. Gwen, please! Jayla's voice pleads through the speakers. Be reasonable. We're family. Are we? Because family doesn't bill each other for basic human decency. You're being hypocritical, she snaps. You just billed us. I'm being consistent. You established that family services have a price. I'm simply presenting my invoice. Dad stands up and starts pacing. This is extortion. No, this is business. You want to treat me like a service provider who owes you money? Fine, but it goes both ways. I open a new document on my laptop and start typing. What are you doing now? Mum asks. Writing a demand letter. I'm giving you 30 days to respond to my invoice. If you don't pay or negotiate in good faith, I'll pursue other options. Other options? Dad stops pacing. Small claims court has a limit, but I can file multiple claims. Or I could hire a lawyer. Breach of implied contract, unjust enrichment, elder abuse. Elder abuse, Mum gasps. Forcing someone to provide unpaid labour under emotional duress. It's a thing. Jayla's face on the screen has gone pale. Gwen, you can't be serious about taking legal action against your own parents. Watch me. I finish typing and hit print again. I'm also prepared to make this public if necessary. Public how? Dad asks. I hold up my phone. Social media. I've documented everything. Every conversation, every text message, every instance of emotional manipulation. I have screenshots of Jayla's fake Venmo promises, recordings of you two discussing me like a burden, photos of the conditions I worked in. You recorded us. Mum's voice is horrified. I documented everything. It's called evidence. I stand up and gather my papers. I'm also prepared to share this story with everyone we know, church friends, neighbours, extended family. Let them decide who the real villain is here. You wouldn't, Jayla says. Try me. The kitchen falls silent except for the sound of the printer finishing my demand letter. Here's what's going to happen, I say, placing the letter on the table. You have 24 hours to decide. Pay my invoice or I start making phone calls. Phone calls to who? Dad asks. Everyone. Aunt Linda, Cousin Mark, the ladies from Mum's book club. I'll tell them exactly what happened here today. How you tried to charge your daughter for taking care of you. Mum starts crying harder. Please don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm responding to what you did to me. I pick up Dad's original bill and tear it in half. There, I just saved you $12,135 . Now you only owe me $78,400. Gwen? Jayla's voice is desperate now. Think about what you're doing. Once you cross this line, there's no going back. I look at her through the screen. You're right. There's no going back. I close the laptop, cutting off her protests. 24 hours, I tell my parents. Then I start making this everyone's problem, not just ours. I walk toward the stairs, then turn back. Oh, and I'll be packing tonight. Regardless of your decision, I'm done living here. Where will you go? Mum asks through her tears. That's not your concern anymore. I climb the stairs, leaving them with my invoice and their choices. Behind me, I hear Dad's voice, quiet and defeated. How did it come to this? But I don't turn around to answer. I already know. I'm stuffing clothes into garbage bags when I hear them arguing downstairs. Their voices carry through the heating vents. We have to call her bluff, Dad says. She won't actually sue us. What if she does? Mum's voice is shaky. What if she really posts all that stuff online? Then we'll deal with it. Deal with it how, Rhett? Everyone will think we're monsters. I zip up my laptop bag and keep packing. 23 hours and counting. My phone rings. Jailer. Don't hang up, she says immediately. We need to talk. I'm busy. Gwen, please, this has gone too far. Has it? Or has it not gone far enough? You're destroying our family. I stop packing. I'm destroying it? Yes, this vindictive, petty revenge fantasy. Revenge fantasy, I laugh, and it sounds harsh even to me. Jailer, you haven't been here. You don't get to judge what this is. I know you're hurt, but... Hurt? I'm not hurt, I'm done. Listen to me. Mum and Dad are panicking. They're talking about taking out a loan against the house. Good. Maybe they'll understand what financial pressure feels like. They're old, Gwen. They don't have the income to pay this. They had the income to charge me rent. That was different. How? Silence on the line. Exactly, I say. You can't explain how it's different because it isn't. Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. Her voice turns cold. I'll match whatever they pay you, dollar for dollar. With what money? I have savings. Ashton has savings. We'll figure it out. Why would you do that? Because unlike you, I actually care about this family. I sit down on my bed, surrounded by packed bags. You care so much you haven't visited once in 11 months. I care enough to prevent you from destroying everyone's lives over your hurt feelings. My hurt feelings? Yes, your hurt feelings, because that's what this is really about, isn't it? You're mad that Mum and Dad love me more. The words hit like a physical blow. Excuse me? You heard me. You've always been jealous, always felt like the second choice, and now you're using this situation to punish everyone for not appreciating you enough. You think this is about jealousy. I think this is about a bitter, lonely woman who can't stand that her sister has a better life. I hang up. 2 hours later, I'm loading my car when Dad comes outside. Where are you going? He asks. Hotel tonight, then I'll figure it out. Gwen, we need to talk about this reasonably. Reasonably? Like when you presented me with a bill for taking care of Mum? That was... He runs his hand through his hair. That was poorly handled. It was calculated, just like my response. We can't pay $78,000. You know we can't. Then we have a problem. What do you want? Really, what would make this go away? I close my trunk and turn to face him. An apology, a real one, not, we're sorry you're upset, or we handled it poorly. A real acknowledgement of what you did. Fine, I'm sorry. For what? For the bill, for asking you to pay rent. And what? For treating me like hired help for 11 months, for praising Jailer while dismissing me, for making me feel invisible in my own family. He's quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to apologise for that. Then we're done here. I get in my car. He knocks on the window. Gwen, please, your mother is having chest pains. The stress. Call 911 or call Jailer. I'm not your emergency contact anymore. I start the engine. In my rearview mirror, I see him standing in the driveway, looking lost. At the hotel, I check my phone. 17 missed calls from various family members. Aunt Linda, Cousin Mark, even my grandmother. Jailer's been busy. I turn off my phone and order room service. The next morning, I'm eating breakfast when someone knocks on my hotel room door. I look through the peephole. Bianca. How did you find me? I ask, letting her in. Your dad called me. He's desperate. Good. She sits on the bed and looks at me. So you really did it? I really did it. How do you feel? I consider the question. Empty. Satisfied. Terrified. All at once. Any regrets? Not yet. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. This is Vienna, your neighbour. Wanted you to know there are cars in your parents' driveway. Looks like family meeting. Thought you should know. Also, I heard what happened. Good for you. Some people need to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. I show Bianca the text. Karma, she says simply. Is it? Or is it just me being vindictive? Does it matter? Sometimes vindictive is what people need to understand they've crossed a line. Another text, this one from Mum. Please come home. We need to talk. As a family. I delete it without responding. What's next? Bianca asks. I don't know. For the first time in a year, I honestly don't know what comes next. That's not necessarily a bad thing. No, I agree, it's not. Outside the hotel window, life continues. People going to work, living their lives, making their own choices. For the first time in 11 months, I'm one of them. 3 weeks pass before I turn my phone back on. The voicemail box is full. I'm sitting in my new studio apartment, small but mine, when I finally listen to them. Most are from family members I haven't spoken to in years, all saying variations of the same thing. We heard what happened, call us. The last message is from Dad, his voice barely a whisper. Gwen, we put the house on the market. We can't afford to stay. Your mother wanted you to know. I delete it and make coffee. Bianca comes over that afternoon with takeout and wine. Any word from the family? She asks, unpacking containers of Thai food. They're selling the house. Jesus, really? Apparently the extended family intervention didn't go well for them. What do you mean? I pull out my laptop and show her the Facebook screenshots I've been collecting. Aunt Linda's post. Sometimes you don't know people as well as you think you do. Cousin Mark's comment on a family photo. Actions have consequences. Wow, Bianca says, they really turned on them. Turns out charging your caregiver daughter for rent doesn't play well with the church crowd. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. It's Ashton, I tell Bianca, reading the message. Jayla's fiancé. What's he want? To meet. Says he has something to give me. We meet at a coffee shop downtown. Ashton looks uncomfortable, fidgeting with his wedding ring. Jayla doesn't know I'm here, he says immediately. Okay. He slides an envelope across the table. This is for you. Inside is a cashier's check for $78,400. I stare at the numbers. Where did this come from? My savings. Our wedding fund, actually. Why? He's quiet for a moment. Because you were right, and because I've been watching Jayla manipulate this situation from the beginning. You have? She's been playing both sides, telling your parents she supports them, telling you she understands your position. She wanted the drama to continue because it kept her looking like the good daughter by comparison. I fold the check and put it back in the envelope. I can't take this. Why not? Because it's not about the money anymore. Then what's it about? I think about the question, acknowledgement, respect, the understanding that what I did mattered. Your parents will never give you that. I know. So what will you do? I stand up and hand him back the envelope. I'm going to live my life. That's it. That's everything. That evening, I call my old boss. She answers on the second ring. Gwen, how's your mother? Fully recovered. I'm ready to come back to work. Thank God. We've been drowning without you. Can you start Monday? I can start tomorrow. The next morning, I'm back at my desk, answering emails and scheduling meetings. It feels like putting on clothes that fit after wearing someone else's for a year. My co-worker Sarah stops by with coffee. How was your time off? Educational. Learn anything interesting? That some bridges are worth burning? She laughs, thinking I'm joking. Around lunch, my phone rings. Mom. Gwen, please don't hang up. I'm at work. I know, I wanted to tell you we found a buyer for the house. Congratulations. We're moving to a senior community, smaller place, more affordable. That sounds practical. Gwen, Her voice breaks. I'm sorry, for all of it. You were right to be angry. I'm quiet for a moment. Thank you for saying that. Does it change anything? No, but it's something. Will we ever see you again? I look out my office window at the city below. People walking, working, living their lives without asking permission or apologising for taking up space. I don't know, Mum. Maybe someday, but not now. I understand. Do you? I'm trying to. After we hang up, I open my laptop and delete the spreadsheet. All 1,247 rows of data gone with a single keystroke. Sarah walks by again. Everything okay? Better than okay. That weekend, Bianca and I go apartment hunting. Not because I need to move, but because I want to. Something bigger, with a view, in a neighbourhood I actually like. You seem different, she says, as we tour a one-bedroom with hardwood floors. Different how? Lighter, like you're not carrying something heavy anymore. She's right. The weight I didn't even realise I was carrying is gone. My phone buzzes. A text from Jayla. Heard Mum apologised. Does this mean we can talk? I screenshot it, then delete it without responding. Some conversations aren't worth having. At the realtor's office, I sign a lease for the apartment with the view. When she asks for my emergency contact, I write down Bianca's name without hesitation. No family? The realtor asks. This is my family, I say, nodding toward Bianca. Walking out of the building, Bianca links her arm through mine. Any regrets? She asks. I think about the question as we walk down the busy street, about the year I gave up, the family I lost, the bridges I burned, and the life I'm building from scratch. None, I say, and mean it. Good, because I'm proud of you. For what? For finally putting yourself first. That night I sit in my current apartment, small but mine, and open my laptop. Instead of a spreadsheet, I start a new document. Not an invoice or a demand letter, but something else entirely. A job application for a position across the country. Better pay, better opportunities, a fresh start in a place where no one knows my story. I fill it out carefully, honestly, without asking anyone's permission. At the bottom, where it asks why I'm interested in relocating, I type, "Ready for a new chapter." Then I hit send. I may be alone, but I'm finally free. And that, after all the invoices, all the arguments, all the burned bridges, was something they could never afford to give me. But I could afford to take it.
Hi, I'm Janice. I used to think family meant love, safety, and a place to call home. But on my 31st birthday, my parents gave me a packed suitcase and told me to leave. No thank you. No goodbye. Just cold words. You're too old to live here for free. The truth is, I paid their bills. I helped with their debts. I kept the lights on. And still, they treated me like I didn't matter. But the worst part wasn't being kicked out. It was realizing they had been using me for years, and I never saw it. And when I finally spoke up and tried to protect myself, they turned on me completely. Before we get into the rest, what time is it where you are? Where are you listening from? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your story too. Because some storms aren't just survived, you grow out of them. I pulled into the old cracked driveway. The sun was already going down, and the sky over Ridgeway, Ohio, was turning dark blue. The air had that early fall feeling, cold enough to sneak under your jacket and make you hug yourself tight. I reached over to the passenger seat and grabbed a small cake box. It was the only thing I got for myself today. $30. Vanilla frosting. Happy birthday written in messy red icing. I didn't bother asking the tired teen behind the counter to fix it. When I stepped inside the house, something felt wrong. Not because I expected a surprise or even a birthday card. I had learned a long time ago that Nathan and Tiffany, my parents, didn't celebrate anything for me. But tonight, the house felt colder than usual. Quiet in a strange way. The kitchen lights were buzzing, giving off a pale, harsh glow. Dinner was already on the table. Meatloaf, canned green beans, boxed mashed potatoes. I hadn't even taken off my coat when Nathan shouted from his seat at the head of the table, "You're late." I placed the cake on the counter. The sound of the paper bag crinkling was the loudest thing in the room. I said I worked late and had to finish some reports. My voice was calm, flat.
I didn't say sorry.
Tiffany didn't say anything either. She just kept moving her fork around, not looking at me. Nathan made a grunt and poured more whiskey into his old, chipped glass. I hung my coat on the hook and sat down. The whole room felt tense, like a stretched wire ready to snap. Dinner began with the sounds of knives hitting plates, glasses clinking, and a few fake coughs. No one said happy birthday.
No one even looked at me.
Just the sounds of chewing and swallowing like machines. I picked up my fork and pushed the mashed potatoes around my plate. They looked sad. I should have known something was about to happen. Nathan wasn't the kind of man to stay quiet for long. Halfway through eating, he slammed his fork down hard. Tiffany jumped in her seat. The sound shot through me like a jolt. He leaned back and stared at me like I was something awful. "You're too old to live here for free," he said. His voice was cold, like he had practiced saying it. "It's time you moved out." For a second, I just stared at him. The words didn't feel real. I looked at Tiffany, hoping she'd say something different. Maybe say he was just drunk. But she didn't even look up. Her lips were pressed, so tight they looked pale. "I pay the internet bill," I said. "The electricity. Half the mortgage. Groceries." My voice stayed calm. I didn't raise it or let it shake. I just told the truth and left it on the table. Nathan let out a short, harsh laugh. It felt like he slapped me with that sound. "Paying a few bills doesn't mean you get to stay forever, princess."
Princess.
He used to call me that when I was little, when I sat on his lap with scraped knees and messy hair. Now, it was something he threw at me like an insult. I felt something break inside me, but I held it in. This wasn't just anger. It wasn't random. They had planned this. They picked my birthday to do it on purpose. Not to celebrate, but to kick me out. I pushed my plate away. The meatloaf, the cake in the bag, and the heavy silence all sat in my stomach like a rock. I stood up slowly. I could feel both of them watching me, maybe waiting for me to cry or beg or fall apart. But I didn't. I just nodded once, quick and firm. "Got it," I said, and Nathan smirked like he had just won something. Tiffany kept her head down, her shoulders slouched with shame, but not enough to speak up. Not enough to stop them from throwing me away like I didn't matter. I walked toward the stairs. I stopped for a second by the counter, where the cake still sat inside its bag. The plastic handle had stretched from the weight and was digging into the soft box. One candle was missing. Maybe it fell off in the car, but it felt like a sign. One missing candle. One missing person. One missing family. I picked up the cake and went upstairs without looking back. Each step creaked under my feet, loud and final. I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, letting the dull sound at my chest. This house was never really mine. Maybe it never had been. I sat on the bed and stared at the packed bags I had been too scared to finish these last few weeks. A part of me had known this would happen. Maybe not today. Maybe not in this cold way. But someday. I thought I had more time. I thought I could fix things by just helping more. I took off my jacket and folded it over the suitcase. My hands were calm, moving without feeling, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was done. As I walked around the room collecting a few things, my mind went into planning mode. Cancel the utility autopay. Move my paychecks to my own bank account, not the shared one my mom told me to use just in case. Find a storage unit until I figured out where to go next. They didn't just throw me out tonight. They gave up everything I ever gave them, without me asking for anything back. Outside the window, the wind picked up. Leaves shook loose from the trees along the street. It was another reminder that winter was coming soon. But I wouldn't be here for it. As I zipped my suitcase, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Same brown hair tied in a messy bun. Same tired green eyes. But something had changed. A line had been crossed. And I couldn't go back, even if I wanted to. I went back to the bed and sat down hard. The cake was on my nightstand now, looking small and sad. I hadn't even bought candles. Not that anyone would have been there to sing anyway. The smell of cheap frosting filled the room. Too sweet, almost sickening. I stared at the box. Through the plastic window, I could see a small smudge of icing. Then, without thinking, I pushed the cake off the nightstand. It landed with a soft thud, the box and cake squishing into the old carpet. "Happy birthday, Janice," I whispered to myself. I sat on the edge of the bed. The silence in the room felt heavy, like it was wrapping around me. My suitcase was half-packed, sitting wide open, as if it was making fun of me for not being ready. Outside, the wind blew against the windows, making the loose glass rattle. No one had ever bothered to fix them. The whole house felt tired, like it had given up. And suddenly I saw it clearly. This wasn't a home. It was just a place where I was allowed to stay until they didn't need me anymore. I looked at the cake on the floor. The frosting was smashed and messy. It looked silly now, like a small hope that didn't belong here, smeared across the carpet. I looked away and Laura gave a smug smile. Off to show more cheap apartments? I threw my worn leather bag over my shoulder. Inside were legal documents and renovation plans worth more than anything in this room. Anna, Aunt Betty called sweetly as I walked to the door. Next time, maybe dress more like a Paquin. Looks matter. I just smiled. Not anymore. I smiled and said, don't worry. Tomorrow, I'll look exactly like the kind of Paquin they expect. Only they won't realize I've already been the one in charge. If anyone out there has been silently hoping I'd win, then don't miss what happens next. When the boardroom doors open, everything changes. Make sure to subscribe so you're the first to see how my family reacts when they find out the woman they ignored now controls it all. The next morning, I stood in my real office. It was an entire penthouse floor with tall windows overlooking downtown Albuquerque. This moment had been in the works for over a year. I was ready. My assistant Rachel walked in quickly and placed a fresh cappuccino beside my laptop. The Hillcroft Plaza board is already seated, she said. Your family came early. They're trying to win over the independent members. I smirked. I could just imagine Brandon and Laura smiling too hard, pretending to be confident, while deep down they were panicking. All audit packets are printed and distributed, Rachel added. The forensic team found even more problems than we expected. She paused for a moment. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Once the truth is out, there's no going back. They need to learn, I said softly, that family legacy doesn't give anyone the right to misuse power. I looked at my reflection in the glass. No more jeans and cardigans. Today, I wore a dark navy Altuzera suit. It had clean lines and strong detail, the kind of outfit Aunt Betty always wished I'd wear to meet a rich husband. But today, I wore it to bring down their carefully built illusion. The ownership announcement will go live in 30 minutes, Rachel said. Once it does, your name will be out there. Then let's begin, I said, picking up my briefcase. Inside the Hillcroft Plaza boardroom, silence filled a space as I walked in. My family sat at the far end of the table. They looked nervous, underdressed, and confused. Who are you? Brandon snapped. This is a private meeting. I calmly set my briefcase at the head of the table. I'm Anna Paquin, I said, founder and sole owner of West Pine Holdings, the company that owns this building and several others your family mishandled. Aunt Betty went pale. Laura opened her mouth but couldn't speak. My father gripped his pen tighter. Anna, he whispered. Good morning, I said and opened the briefcase. I slid copies of the audit reports across the table. Shall we go over your financial records? This is crazy, Brandon stammered. You're just... What? I asked. The black sheep? The renter? The woman in second-hand clothes? Laura blinked in disbelief. But you show apartments. I work, I replied. And I built something real, with honesty, not fake success. One page at a time, the truth came out. And the proud Paquin family? They began to fall apart, right in front of the entire board. I held up the final set of documents and said, these show every single misuse of money, every fake receipt, every overpriced invoice. They clearly explain what's been going wrong with Hillcroft Plaza's finances. Then I began handing out the last few pages to the board members. Brandon, I said calmly, would you like to explain the $3 million in so-called roof repairs that somehow paid for your Douglas vacation home? His face turned bright red. For a second, I thought he might actually faint. I turned the page. Laura, I said, how about we talk about your husband's plumbing invoices, 4 times the usual price for basic repairs? Want to explain that to the board? Aunt Betty gasped. You're going to air out your own family's dirty laundry like this? I looked at her and said evenly, no, you all aired it out. I'm just the one cleaning it up. Finally, my father spoke. His voice was soft, almost begging. Anna, sweetheart, we can explain. Don't, I said, raising my hand. I've watched this family treat our great-grandfather's hard work like a bank machine for years. While you laughed at my quiet, simple life, I was building something stronger. Something based on values, not vanity. Laura blinked, confused. But why live like you were struggling? I wasn't pretending, I said. I lived modestly. I made smart choices. You just assumed being wealthy means showing off. That's on you. Brandon shook his head slowly. The Bradford Street building. You really live there? I own it, I replied. And most of the block. And no, I'm not tearing it down. Some of us care about people, not just profit. At that moment, phones started buzzing around the boardroom. One of the members looked at his screen and read aloud. Westpine Holdings reveals CEO's identity. Anna Paquin, unusual Paquin family member, confirmed owner of a $3 billion real estate portfolio. Another board member added, ranked one of the top ethical developers in the region, historic building protection, tenant rights. Laura looked pale. This will destroy us, she whispered. No, I said firmly. This will save you from yourselves. Starting today, I continued, Hillcroft Plaza will run honestly. No more secret deals. No more fake contracts. No more using the company like a family credit card. Brandon tried to sound tough. And what if we don't agree? I smiled. Then I'll hand these reports to the authorities. I'm sure the IRS will be very interested. The room went silent. Finally, Dad asked, what do you want? I looked around the room, meeting their eyes one by one. I want you to remember what the Paquin name used to stand for, before the greed, before the lies. Our great-grandfather built communities, not just profits. I stood up and began gathering my papers. My voice was steady as I looked around the room. You have a choice, I said. Work with me to rebuild what our family once stood for, or find somewhere else to live. I hear Happy Valley has some nice rental homes. I turned to leave, but my dad's voice stopped me at the door. Anna, wait, he said softly. I was wrong about you. I paused, then replied quietly, yes, you were. What happened next felt like something straight out of a business drama. The media loved the story of a quiet woman from Albuquerque who had secretly built a real estate empire and exposed her family's mistakes in one powerful board meeting. Soon after, Aunt Betty stepped down from 4 charity boards. She couldn't face the public after the truth came out. Laura's husband's company collapsed within weeks once the audit became public. Turns out, being honest does matter. But not everything that followed was sad or angry. Some changes were hopeful. Brandon, after years of living above the rules, was finally held responsible. He got arrested for financial fraud. Laura surprised me. She signed up for classes at a public university, studying real estate from scratch. She even began helping out at a downtown shelter for people moving into permanent homes. Later, she told me volunteering gave her more joy than any fancy art show ever did. As for my dad, he did something I never expected. He asked to learn the business, not to take over, not to give advice. He came with an open heart, ready to learn as a student. For the first time, he really wanted to understand what I had created. 7 months later, I was sitting in my Bradford Street apartment, the same one everyone once laughed at me for living in. I had kept it. It reminded me of where I started. I was reading the new quarterly reports. Hillcroft Plaza was doing better than ever. Tenants were happy, the shops downstairs were making money, and everything was running smoothly. A knock on the door pulled me out of my thoughts. I opened it and was surprised to see my mother standing there. She wore simple jeans, no makeup, and looked different.
Softer.
I got your invitation, she said, holding it up. A courtyard holiday party? I nodded. It's probably not your usual scene. She looked around my cozy apartment and said, no, it's not. But I'm starting to learn that maybe the scene doesn't matter. She picked up a framed photo on my shelf, me at 24, smiling proudly with my real estate license. I never asked, she said, why did you choose this path? Because I wanted to build something real, I said. not just buy things and show them off. She nodded slowly. And now you control more than any of us. I do, I said. But I'm not after control. I'm after purpose. She looked at me with new respect. Will you teach me? Come tonight, I said. Meet the families who've lived here for decades. Listen to their stories. That's where legacy really begins. I stood by my window, looking out at the city lights sparkling across Albuquerque. This was the city I had slowly and quietly made my own. In the distance, I could see Hillcroft Plaza. It no longer stood for greed and pride. It now stood for growth and change. Below me, the Bradford Street building was full of life. People moved about inside. Warm lights glowed in the windows, and laughter echoed through the courtyard. The building's brick walls, old wooden beams, and shared garden spaces had all been kept just the way they were meant to be. Strong, simple, and beautiful. We had restored, not erased. My phone buzzed with messages. There were offers for partnerships, invites to speak at events, and proposals for more property deals. West Pine Holdings had become a name people respected and wanted to work with. But I kept my days simple. I made time for breaks, for people, for peace. To me, success didn't mean being loud or flashy. It meant building something real. Something that would last. Sometimes the person others look down on turns out to be the one they end up learning from. And sometimes the best kind of victory isn't loud or dramatic. It's steady, quiet, and lasting. A week later, I stood beside the garden fountain at the Bradford Street holiday party. Twinkling lights hung above us, and music played softly in the background. I watched my family slowly adjusting to a world they once looked down on. My mom was sitting beside Mrs. Jacob, a tenant who had lived in the building for 40 years. She listened to her story with real interest. Brandon was helping Mr. Gregory, a World War II veteran and the building's longest resident, hang string lights. Laura was laughing at a table where kids were decorating sugar cookies. They were starting to understand. Real wealth isn't about what you show off. It's about what you care for, what you share, and who you help rise along with you. My dad came over to the hot cocoa table and stood beside me. You know, he said, your great-grandfather always believed buildings should take care of people, not just make money. I nodded. I found his old notes, I said. He wrote about protecting tenants, about treating them like family. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. He looked at me, not like I was a daughter who had gone in the wrong direction, but like someone who had carried forward a dream he once had. You could have ruined us, he said quietly. That was never the point, I replied. I looked over at a little girl dancing under the string lights. I wanted to build something that would last. Because sometimes true success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about offering them a better way to be right. And if you've ever been pushed aside, counted out, or made to feel small, maybe you see a little of yourself in me. I never started this journey to prove anyone wrong. That was never my goal. I just wanted to build something real, something solid that couldn't be taken from me. I wanted to create a life that was based on strong values, not on showing off. I believed in working quietly, in doing the hard things without expecting praise, and in staying true to myself even when no one else believed in me. If my story touched your heart or made you think, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. What would you have done if you were in my place? Have you ever worked on something in silence while others doubted you?
Let's talk about that.
Let's give each other credit for the behind-the-scenes work, the late nights, the hard decisions, and the quiet wins no one claps for. If you're facing a moment right now where people expect nothing from you, I want you to remember this. You don't need to get louder to prove yourself. You just need to get stronger. You don't need anyone's permission or approval to start. What you need is a clear purpose and the courage to keep going. The rest will come. The progress, the recognition, the peace, they follow when you keep building, even when it's hard. If this message means something to you, I invite you to support this journey by subscribing to the channel. There are more stories coming, stories about strength healing and learning how to define success for yourself. Because true success doesn't always look like trophies or headlines. Sometimes it looks like standing tall when no one expected you to. Sometimes it looks like helping others after being overlooked. And sometimes, the best kind of revenge isn't about getting back at anyone at all. It's simply becoming the person they said you could never be. Legacy isn't something you're handed. It's something you create. It's built piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. And if we keep going, together, we can build something that doesn't just look impressive but actually matters. So stay with me.
Subscribe.
Let's share these stories. Let's support each other in the quiet moments and celebrate the strength it takes to keep going even when no one's watching. Let's create something that lasts. When I was 15 years old, my mom told me to step out of the family photo. She said I didn't match. Then she smiled for the camera like nothing was wrong. I stood to the side, trying not to cry. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I went straight to my room and stayed there. I picked up my pencil and started drawing. I sketched a life where I felt like I finally belonged. A life where I was wanted. That night was the beginning of something big. My name is Kathy Hilton. This is the story of how my mom made me feel like I didn't belong, and how I worked hard to build a life that was so full and bright that even she couldn't ignore it. When I was younger, I didn't feel invisible. At least not at first. I was a quiet kid, yes, but I got good grades. I helped around the house. I didn't ask for much. I was the kind of child who stayed quiet in the back seat while adults talked in the front. For a while, that seemed to make everyone happy. But things changed when my mom, Tiffany, married a man named Adam. Adam had 2 children, Ruth and Tyler. They were loud and full of energy. They played sports and loved being the center of attention. Tiffany called them a breath of fresh air. After that, everything in our house started to change. Our walls used to have my drawings hanging in the hallway. I had framed some of them myself. Slowly, they started disappearing. In their place, new photos appeared, pictures of Ruth and Tyler winning soccer games, dancing at recitals, and smiling on sunny beach days. No one said anything about the missing artwork. Not even when I asked. Tiffany loved showing off our happy family online. She would dress us in matching clothes, plan family outings, and post photos on social media with cheerful captions. But somehow I was always missing. I was either cropped out of the pictures or standing in the corner, blurry and half-hidden. One night, I finally asked her, "Do you not want me in the pictures?" She didn't even look up from her phone. She let out a long sigh, like I was being difficult. "Kathy, don't make everything so dramatic," she said. "You're too sensitive." That was her favorite thing to say. "You're too sensitive." Like my feelings were a problem. Like the pain I felt didn't matter. But that pain gave me strength. I kept drawing. I worked hard. I dreamed of a better life. One where I would be seen and heard. And one day, that dream came true. My art started to get noticed. My name made it into the news. People cared about my work. Now, my life is filled with people who see me for who I am. And in that picture, Tiffany is nowhere to be found. I used to think I should just be happy to exist quietly in the background. Like I should be thankful just to be there. After a while, I stopped asking questions. I stopped speaking up. It felt easier that way. The holidays were always the worst. Adam's kids, Ruth and Tyler, would get big, expensive gifts like bikes and iPads. I would get socks or things for school. One Christmas, they opened matching North Face jackets, warm and shiny, while I opened a notebook. My name was spelled wrong on the cover. Tiffany looked at me with a smile and said, "You like drawing, don't you?" I nodded, but inside I felt like sinking into the floor. It wasn't just about the gifts. It was the way she acted like everything was fine. Like I should be excited about a cheap notebook while everyone else unwrapped their second round of presents. She made me feel like I was being ungrateful for not smiling and clapping. But the truth was, it hurt. It hurt to be left out over and over again. Still, not everyone treated me that way. My grandmother, Tiffany's mom, lived a few towns away. Her name was Jacqueline. She had gray streaks in her hair and always smelled like cinnamon tea. She called me Lena and told me I had my grandfather's hands, strong and steady, good for making things. She didn't ask me to explain who I was or what I was feeling.
She just saw me. And that was enough.
When things got really hard at home, I started spending weekends with Grandma Jacqueline. Tiffany didn't seem to care. In fact, she looked like she was happy to have one less person to think about. Maybe it made her life easier having me out of the way. But at Grandma's house, I could finally breathe. She saw that I was always sketching. I loved drawing faces, buildings, and outfits. One day, she asked me if I had ever thought about studying graphic design. I told her I didn't even know what that was. The next week, she signed me up for a free weekend class at the local library. After that, she found more classes for me. She would drive me there and wait outside with her tea and her books. "Don't let anyone make your world small, Lena," she told me one night as we sat under a blanket watching an old black and white movie. "You're bigger than they want you to believe." Tiffany never asked where I was going. She never cared what I was learning. If she noticed that I was getting better at design, she never said a word. One day, she handed me a list and said, "Make yourself useful and pick this stuff up while I take Ruth to her modeling audition."
Just like that.
As if my time didn't matter. As if I was invisible again. But I wasn't invisible to Grandma Jacqueline. And that changed everything. I looked at the list Tiffany gave me. It said, shampoo, snacks, candles, all expensive name brands, of course. Then she handed me a $10 bill that would cover everything. I looked at her and said it wasn't enough. She rolled her eyes and said, "Then use your own money. You're always at your grandma's house anyway. I'm sure she spoils you." That was the moment I knew something for sure. Tiffany didn't see me as her daughter. I was just something extra in her life, something she had to manage. I didn't match her perfect image, so to her, I didn't matter. After that, I started writing more in my journal. I drew late into the night. I didn't know exactly what I was planning, but I knew I had to get away someday. I dreamed about a life where I belonged. Grandma Jacqueline encouraged me to keep everything, every drawing, every idea. She once told me, "Someday, you'll need to show the world what they missed." She was right. But back then, I was just a quiet girl with a pencil and a heart that felt heavy all the time. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to feel like I mattered to someone. By the time I got to high school, I realized I wasn't just ignored. I was invisible. Tiffany had mastered the skill of pretending I wasn't there. If I got an A on a test, she'd barely look up like I just said I took out the trash. But when Ruth, Adam's daughter, made the honor roll, Tiffany would post about it on YT like Ruth had won a gold medal. Ruth and Tyler were Adam's children, my step-siblings. When Tiffany married Adam, it was like she changed our whole family. Suddenly, we weren't the Parks anymore. We were the Bradfords. She even changed their last names. Everyone had the same name except me. Mine stayed the same. I didn't argue. I just stopped trying to be noticed. They went on ski trips in the winter, beach vacations in the summer. I was never invited. "You don't like the cold," Tiffany said once. The next year it was, "You burn too easily in the sun." After a while, she didn't even pretend to have a reason. She just said, "It's easier with the four of us." So while they took pretty photos at the beach, I stayed behind. But I didn't stay at home with them. I packed a small bag and went to stay with Grandma Jacqueline. Grandma Jacqueline was Tiffany's mother, but you would never know it. She was warm and kind. She listened to me. She made me feel safe, like I was enough just the way I was. She didn't try to change me. She just loved me. And that made all the difference. Grandma Jacqueline lived in a small yellow house. The floors creaked when you walked, and the whole place always smelled like lavender. It was quiet and peaceful. Her hands were always warm and smelled like soap, and she never asked me to smile for pictures. Instead, she would hand me a plate of cookies and say, "Let it out." And I would. I felt safe there. That house became my favorite place. It was also where I started drawing more seriously. I had an old iPhone, probably something Tiffany didn't want anymore. It was scratched up, but it worked. I bought a $15 stylus from a clearance bin at the store and began drawing digital art. I sketched fashion ideas, logos, and fake magazine ads. I made up my own brands and created designs just for fun. It felt good to create something that couldn't be cut out of a photo or pushed aside. One Tuesday, Grandma walked into the room and saw what I was working on. I was making a poster for a pretend coffee shop. She sat down beside me, looked at the screen for a moment, and then asked, "Have you ever thought about doing this for real?" I shrugged and said, "It's just something I like." She didn't push. She simply said, "Keep everything you make. We'll need it later." That's how it all started. Every weekend, I would bring my sketches to Grandma's house. She would print them out for me, slide them into clear plastic sleeves, and place them into a big leather binder. She called it Kathy's Book of Brilliance. At first, I thought it was silly, but later, it would mean everything to me. In my junior year of high school, Grandma Jacqueline signed me up for a digital design class at the community center in town. When Tiffany found out, she said no right away. "It's too expensive," she said, even though she had just bought Ruth a $600 purse for her birthday. But Grandma paid for the class herself. She even found someone to drive me there, so Tiffany wouldn't notice. I think Grandma always knew I needed a way out, a path to something better. Then one afternoon, she showed me just how much she believed in me. I was sitting at her kitchen table after school, telling her about how my school counselor said I could apply to art colleges if I built a strong portfolio. I was excited, but also scared. I didn't want to get my hopes up. Tiffany had already laughed at the idea when I mentioned it once before. But Grandma didn't laugh. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You can do this. And we're going to make sure you do." That was the first time I truly believed it could happen. Grandma saw something in me that no one else did. And little by little, I started to believe in it too. When I talked about going to college at home, Tiffany didn't take it seriously. I told her I wanted to study design, and she frowned. "That's not a real job, Kathy," she said. But Grandma Jacqueline didn't laugh. She stood up quietly and went to her bedroom. I heard her opening drawers. A few minutes later, she came back holding a sealed envelope. She sat down, slid the envelope across the table, and looked at me with a soft smile. "Your grandfather set up a trust fund for education before he passed," she said. "I've added to it a little over the years. It's in your name. I was waiting for the right time to tell you." I just stared at her.
I didn't know what to say.
"You're going to college, Kathy," she said, like it was already happening. And she was right. I applied to 6 schools. I got into 3 of them. One of those schools was a private university 3 states away with one of the best visual design programs in the country. They offered me a full scholarship. The acceptance letter came in a thick, shiny envelope. Tiffany never asked about it. She didn't even notice the letter in the mailbox. The day after graduation, I left. There was no party, no celebration, no family photos, just Grandma and me, packing up my old thrift store suitcase and walking together to the bus stop. College was the first place I ever felt like I truly belonged. My roommate, Lauren, was loud, messy, and full of life. She loved everything I designed. One day, she showed some of my work to her friend, who worked at a local boutique. That's how I got my first real design job, creating a seasonal lookbook for their store. Things moved quickly after that. A small advertising agency in the city hired me part-time. Then, a brand consulting company offered me a summer internship. I worked hard. I stayed up late, worked on weekends, and kept adding to my portfolio. Back home, Tiffany was still posting pretty pictures of brunch and family fun. She'd write captions like "Family First" while I was building a future she didn't even know about. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. 5 years later, I graduated with honors, summa cum laude. I had job offers before I even walked across the stage. One of those offers came from CNV, a well-known marketing company that helps launch big fashion and lifestyle brands. Their executive director had seen my student portfolio during a national design conference. He emailed me directly. His message said, "Kathy, your eye for storytelling is rare. Let's talk." And just like that, the life I had imagined back in Grandma Jacqueline's kitchen, the one I sketched late at night, had finally become real. I never told Tiffany where I really worked. She thought I was working at a little cafe. In truth, I had quietly moved into a tiny apartment near the marketing firm. I was building a life that no one could take away from me. As the years went by, I worked hard and moved up step by step. I started as a junior designer, then became an art director, and finally, a lead creative strategist. By the time I was 28, I bought my own apartment. I took Grandma Jacqueline to Nantes for her birthday, paid off her house, and adopted a small dog named Pepper. He wore little boots in the winter, and everyone in the neighborhood loved him. Meanwhile, Tiffany kept posting photos with Ruth and Tyler, still pretending I didn't exist. I didn't try to change that. I had my own life now. Then one day, everything changed. It was a Sunday morning. I was in the break room at work, sipping coffee and going over a pitch on my laptop. My assistant came in and tapped on the door. "You've been confirmed for Channel 9's morning show next week," she said. "They want to feature you on their Young Visionary segment." I almost dropped my mug. I couldn't believe it. The segment aired next Friday. The set was warm and cozy. The hosts were smiling, and there I was, talking about my journey from a quiet, forgotten teen to a name in the design world. I spoke about creative storytelling, brand identity, and how I found my voice through art. They even showed some of my old college sketches. Grandma had saved them all, of course. People started noticing. The comments came quickly. "So inspiring. She's so talented. Where has she been hiding?" Tiffany found out like everyone else, on live TV. She was throwing a brunch to celebrate Tyler getting his real estate license. I wasn't there, but I can picture it. She probably had a fork halfway to her mouth when she saw my face on the screen. Ruth might have blinked. Tyler probably made some silly joke. But it didn't matter. Because suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. After that, everything happened fast. I was featured in magazines. LinkedIn highlighted me in a spotlight post. A campaign I designed even ended up on a huge billboard in Times Square. The girl Tiffany once told to stay out of the family photo had just become the face of a creative movement. And this was just the beginning. 4 days after the show aired, I got a message. "Kathy, it's your mother. My 51st birthday is next month. We're having a nice brunch at Belmore Gardens. You probably don't know it. Very exclusive. Be there at 11:30 a.m. sharp. Don't embarrass me." No, how are you? No, I'm proud of you. Just a demand with a quiet insult hidden inside. Like always. I almost deleted the message. But instead I laughed. Not because I was angry. I just couldn't believe it. After 14 years of silence, this was her big return? A brunch invite, written like some royal command? That night, I sat in Grandma Jacqueline's kitchen, sipping tea. I told her about the message. She didn't say much. She raised one eyebrow and asked, "So, what are you bringing her?" I smiled and pulled out a small envelope. Inside it was a printed certificate, a gift for a luxury spa retreat in the Swiss Alps. The full package, a mountain view suite, a private chef, spa treatments, a chauffeur. It cost a lot, probably 5 figures. Grandma nearly dropped her teacup. "Kathy, she doesn't deserve this." "Oh, I know," I said, taking another sip. "I'm not giving it to her. I just want her to see what she gave up." Grandma laughed. "You're your own kind of clever." On the day of the brunch, I wore a simple black jumpsuit and a small gold necklace. No brand names, no shiny heels, just quiet confidence. The kind of presence people don't notice until it's gone. I arrived 6 minutes early. Belmore Gardens looked exactly how I expected, trying too hard to be fancy. Weak mimosas. Decorations that looked expensive if you'd never been anywhere real. A hostess led me to the private garden room. Everyone was already there. Ruth, Tyler, Adam, and a bunch of people I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. Tiffany sat at the head of the table, dressed in gold sequins, full of herself. When she saw me, she blinked, like she was seeing a ghost. "Oh, you actually came," she said with a fake smile. "You could have dressed up more for the occasion." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and sat at the far end of the table. The brunch felt like a low-budget drama. Ruth gave Tiffany a custom jewelry box. Tyler handed her a designer bag with her initials. Tiffany made a big show of it all, dramatic gasps, fake tears. Then it was my turn. I reached into my purse and placed a small, neatly wrapped box in front of her. No speech. No big moment. Just a quiet, happy birthday. Tiffany looked at the box, eyes narrowing. This better not be one of those silly minimalist gifts people post online. Honestly, Kathy, you show up in plain clothes, take a taxi here, and now this. She didn't even open it. She pushed it back across the table. You always knew how to disappoint. The room fell silent. Even Ruth looked a little uncomfortable. She reached out, picked up the box, brushed off a crumb, and calmly said, "That's a certificate for a luxury retreat in Italy. The kind of place people go to escape the noise." Tiffany's face turned pale. "You're lying." "I was going to give it to you," I said quietly. I slipped the box back into my purse and looked at her. "You don't really want me," I said calmly. "You just want what I can give you. That's how it's always been." I stood up, smoothed out my jacket, and gave her one last look. "You told me to stay out of the picture," I said. "So I did. But I didn't disappear. I just got sharper." Then I turned and walked out. No one followed me. No one tried to stop me. The taxi was waiting outside. As we drove away, I glanced back and saw Tiffany rush out the front door, phone in hand. She was already calling. I didn't answer. For the next 3 weeks, messages poured in, one after another. "Let's talk. You overreacted. We're still family. Ruth needs help with branding. Maybe you two can work together. We're redoing the kitchen. Could use your creative eye." Each message became more obvious.
It was never really about me.
It was always about what I could do for her. I blocked her on everything. That didn't stop her. She showed up at Grandma Jacqueline's house, this time with fake tears and the same old demands. Grandma stayed calm and firm. She looked her daughter in the eyes and said, "You gave up your daughter years ago. Don't act surprised that she doesn't want you now." That night, I sat on Grandma's porch. The air was cool, and the city lights flickered through the trees. I felt peaceful. I reached into my bag and pulled out the Swiss retreat certificate. I smiled. "I changed the name," I said softly. Grandma blinked. "What?" "It's yours now," I told her. "You always said you wanted to see the Alps." She stared at me, her mouth open. "Kathy, I don't need this." I leaned forward, took her hand in mine, and smiled. "I know you don't need it," I said. "But you deserve it. You saw me when no one else did.
You let me draw.
You called me brilliant. You saved every little piece I made. That's what a mother does." She started crying, and I let her. For the first time in a long time, I felt full. Not in a loud or showy way. Not the kind of full you post on social media, but in a deep, quiet way, the kind that tells you you're safe, that you're home. Tiffany will probably keep telling people that I'm ungrateful, that I left her behind, that I owe her something. But I don't. I owe everything to the woman who made space for me when the rest of the world said, "Not now. Not you." The family photo might have looked perfect without me in it, but the life I built, it's better because she wasn't in it. I should have known something was off when my sister Catherine suddenly said she could pay for her dream wedding. Just 4 months earlier, she was crying about money, saying she would have to settle for a small backyard ceremony because she couldn't afford anything else. Now, she was planning the most fancy wedding our town had ever seen. The wedding was at a historic mansion that cost a lot just to rent. There was a premium open bar, a 5-course dinner with gourmet food, and the dress. Oh, the dress. It was a designer gown she had been talking about all morning. She twirled in front of a full-length mirror in the bridal suite, the tiny beads on the fabric catching the light beautifully. "Isn't it gorgeous?" Catherine said, spinning with excitement. "I still can't believe I found it on sale." I smiled, but it was forced. I was holding my 6-year-old daughter, Christine, on my hip, and my mind couldn't stop spinning. Something wasn't right. Just last month, Catherine told me she couldn't even be listed as an emergency contact at Christine's preschool because she was broke. Now she was wearing a dress that cost more than my car. "It's beautiful, Samantha. You look perfect," I told her. Our mom raised an eyebrow. "I thought you said it was a sample dress?" Catherine's smile slipped for just a second, then came back even bigger. "Right. A sample sale. That's what I meant." I watched her adjust her veil in the mirror. I wanted to believe her, but something deep down didn't feel right. She had no money, just a month ago. Where did it all come from? Then Christine tugged at my bridesmaid dress. Mommy, that dress looks like the one from your special box. My heart dropped. The special box. Christine was talking about my grandmother's old jewelry box, the one where I had been hiding my savings. For the past 3 years, I had been secretly saving money for Christine's ear surgery. She has a hearing problem, and the insurance won't pay for all of it. I kept the money hidden because my ex-husband is still fighting me in court, and I knew he'd try to take it. What special box, sweetie? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. The one with all the money pictures. The one that was empty last week. Everything around me seemed to close in. The air felt heavy. I had noticed the box felt lighter, but I thought maybe I had moved it wrong. Now it made sense. My heart pounded as I looked at Catherine. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I already knew the truth. When I checked the box a few days ago, I thought something felt off. It seemed lighter, but I didn't have time to count the money. Things were so busy with the wedding coming up. There was just too much to do, and I pushed the thought aside. Now, standing there in the bridal suite, it hit me again. Catherine, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Where did you really get the money for this wedding? Her face turned pale. She looked like a statue, frozen in place. But before she could say anything, our mother rushed into the room with her usual energy. 8 minutes until showtime, she said cheerfully. Everyone, line up. The next hour felt like a blur. I walked down the aisle, but I wasn't really there. I stood through the ceremony with my thoughts spinning. I smiled for photos like everything was fine, but my chest was tight the whole time. All I could think about was my sister twirling in a dress that might have been paid for with the money I had saved for my daughter's surgery. During the reception, my mind couldn't rest. I kept going over Christine's words in my head. Catherine had come to my house the weekend before. She said she wanted to help with wedding stuff. She insisted on helping me pack and get organized. At one point, she said she was looking for my makeup bag and went upstairs. But now that I think about it, she was gone for almost an hour. Then the DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. Time for the speeches. I turned and looked at Catherine. She was laughing with her new husband, glowing with joy. They looked like the perfect couple. But all I saw was the sparkle of stolen happiness. That dress. The fancy food. The big venue. None of it looked like it came from someone who had been broke just a few weeks ago. And sitting quietly beside me at the head table was my little girl, Christine. Her soft curls framed her face, and behind her ears were her tiny hearing aids. They helped, but not enough. The surgery I was saving for would give her the chance to hear properly as she grew older. The best man stood up to give a toast, holding his champagne glass. But before he could say a word, Christine looked at Catherine's dress again and pointed. Mommy, she said in her small voice, it's just like the picture. The one from your special box. The one with all the money for my ears. The room went quiet. More than 280 people stared at us. Catherine froze. Her glass hung in the air. I took a deep breath and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Christine, what do you mean about Mommy's special box? Christine didn't miss a beat. The box with the pictures of money. Auntie Dorothy was counting them in your room last week. She put them in her purple bag. Catherine jumped up so fast her fancy dress made a loud swishing sound. She's just a child, she said quickly. She doesn't know what she's saying. But Christine kept going, her voice soft but clear. You said the pictures would help fix my ears, Mommy. But now they're gone. And Auntie Dorothy has a pretty dress instead. Something broke inside me. I thought of all those long nights at the hospital, all the extra shifts I took just to save every penny. Every small thing I gave up, so I could put money aside for Christine's surgery. And now I was looking at the person who took it all for a wedding. I stood up slowly. The room had gone completely quiet. Everyone was watching. Catherine, I said, my voice louder than I meant it to be. Do you want to explain to everyone how you suddenly had enough money to pay for this wedding? Or should I tell them about the $16,000 that disappeared from my daughter's surgery fund last week? Gasps filled the room. People began whispering to each other. Catherine's new husband looked shocked, staring at her. Our mother dropped her champagne glass. It shattered loudly on the marble floor. I was going to pay it back. Catherine cried, her eyes filling with tears. After the honeymoon. You have to understand, this was my dream wedding. My daughter's surgery was her dream, I said, my voice breaking. Her only chance to hear better, to live a normal life. And you took that from her. How could you? The best man slowly sat back down. He didn't say a word. The microphone still sat in his hand, forgotten. Catherine's husband, Timothy, stood stiffly beside her, his face pale. What surgery fund? He asked, his voice low but firm. Catherine, what did you do? I reached into my purse, my hands shaking. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of photos I had taken, the savings log where I recorded every deposit over the last 3 years. I showed the screen to Timothy. Would you like to see the exact amount that went missing the same day you came over to help me get ready for the wedding? I asked, my voice full of pain. Timothy stared at the photos, my logbook entries, a picture of my grandmother's empty jewelry box, and even a screenshot from my front door camera. It clearly showed Catherine walking out with her purple handbag. $16,000? Timothy whispered. You stole $16,000 from your niece's surgery fund. For this wedding? Catherine couldn't answer. Her makeup had melted down her face, and all the lies she'd carefully built around her perfect day were falling apart in front of everyone. She reached out and tried to grab Timothy's arm. Baby, please, I can explain. I was desperate. Desperate, I said, holding Christine tightly in my arms. You weren't desperate when you ordered the $3,000 bridesmaid dresses that we had to pay for ourselves. Or when you booked that 7-star honeymoon suite. Our mother, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. She stepped between us, her hands shaking. There must be some mistake, she whispered. Catherine would never, she couldn't have. Show them the video, Mommy, Christine said softly, her little voice somehow cutting through the tense silence. The one from your special camera. Catherine's head snapped up. What video? I unlocked my phone and opened another file. After my divorce, I installed security cameras around the house for safety. I never thought I'd need them to protect us from my own sister. But there it was, clear video footage from last week. The video showed Catherine in my bedroom, quietly opening drawers and searching until she found my grandmother's antique jewelry box. The timestamp matched exactly with the time she said she was looking for my makeup bag. On the screen, she opened the box, counted the money, and stuffed it into her purple bag before carefully putting the empty box back. I installed the cameras to protect us from my ex, I said quietly. But I guess I needed them for something else too. Everyone watched in silence. The room was completely still except for the sound of the video playing. The footage left no doubt. Timothy stepped back from Catherine, staring at the screen. Then he pulled off his wedding ring and placed it on the table. I can't believe this. You told me your parents gave you the money. You said it was an early inheritance. I shook my head. Mom and Dad can barely afford their mortgage. They refinanced the house last year just to stay afloat. Another lie, Catherine. Our father, who had been sitting in stunned silence, suddenly stood up. The mortgage? How did you know about that? Because I've been helping them make their payments every month, I said. While Catherine told them she couldn't afford to help. Whispers started spreading around the room. Guests turned to each other, stunned, watching as the truth kept coming out. Catherine's perfect wedding was falling apart, piece by piece. The web of lies she had built was breaking in front of everyone. I'll pay it back, Catherine cried. Her tears, black with mascara, ran down her cheeks and onto the dress she had bought with stolen money. I swear I'll fix it. But no one looked convinced. I'll get a loan, work extra shifts, anything, Catherine begged. Please don't ruin my wedding day. Timothy let out a bitter laugh. Ruin your wedding day? You did that yourself the moment you chose to start our marriage with lies and stealing. Just then, Christine tugged gently at my dress. Mommy, she asked softly, will I still get my new ears? Her words cut through the noise in the room like a knife. You could feel the shift. The room was silent again, except for the quiet sniffles of a few guests who were wiping their eyes. My daughter's simple wish, to hear clearly like other kids, had been thrown away so someone else could have champagne towers, centerpieces, and designer shoes. "What kind of surgery does she need?" Timothy asked, his tone changing. His voice was serious now, calm but firm, like someone used to dealing with the truth. "Cochlear implants," I said. "Insurance will only cover part of the cost. We needed $16,000 more to pay for the surgery and recovery care. I've been saving for 3 years." Timothy reached into his jacket and pulled out his checkbook. "I'll write you a check right now," he said. "Call it a wedding gift, or more like a divorce settlement." Catherine gasped and rushed toward him. "Timothy, no.
Please. We can fix this.
We can talk about it." "Fix what?" he said, stepping away from her. "The stealing? The lying? The part where I find out my new wife took money meant to help a child here? There's nothing left to fix." Our mother stepped in one last time, clearly trying to hold everything together. "Maybe we should all calm down. Have some cake. We can talk about this later." "Later?" I asked, raising my voice. "When exactly would be a good time to talk about how your daughter stole from her own niece? After they finished taking wedding photos? After the honeymoon?" Everyone around us had stopped moving. The band had gone quiet. The wedding planner looked confused, not sure if the party should continue. The servers were still standing with trays full of untouched food. "I want the money back by Friday," I said firmly. "Every single penny. Or I'm going to the police." "You wouldn't," Catherine whispered. "I'm your sister." I looked her straight in the eyes. "A sister who stole from my child. Watch me." Timothy, standing beside me now, tore the check from his book. "I'm making it $21,000, he said. "The extra is for any legal fees and the pain this has caused." Then he turned to Catherine, the woman he had married less than 3 hours ago. "And Catherine," he said, his voice cold and steady, "don't bother coming back to the house." "I'll have your things sent to your mother's house," Timothy said as he handed me the check. Catherine made one last desperate try. "It was just sitting there in that old box," she cried. "You didn't even need it right away. I was going to put it back before Christine's surgery." I looked straight at her, my voice steady. "Her surgery is scheduled for next month. I was going to surprise everyone with the news at Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner. But surprise, your lies have consequences." Catherine's face turned even paler. Her hands shook, and she had no more words. The wedding planner, who had been standing silently nearby, finally spoke. Should I tell the band to pack up?" Before anyone could answer, Christine spoke again. Her little voice was soft but clear, despite her hearing problems. "Does this mean I get my new ears now, Mommy?" 3 months later, I sat in the hospital waiting room holding Christine's favorite stuffed bunny close to my chest. She was in surgery, finally getting her cochlear implants. My heart beat fast, but I felt thankful. Everything we went through, every tear, every truth, had brought us to this moment. Catherine's wedding had become the talk of our town. Everyone knew what had happened. Timothy filed for an annulment the very next day, and Catherine moved back into our parents' house, completely embarrassed. Her dream day turned into a nightmare. Timothy's check had cleared quickly. Thanks to him, we didn't just pay for Christine's surgery. We also arranged the best recovery care and therapy so she could adjust well afterward. I never thought help would come from someone who was once part of the same painful mess, but sometimes life surprises you. Karma works in funny ways, I whispered to myself as the nurse came out. "Mrs. Stephen," the nurse said gently. "Christine's surgery went perfectly. She's in recovery now." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I followed the nurse down the bright hallway, my heart lighter with every step. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. Another message from Catherine. "Please let me come see Christine. I need to make things right." I didn't open it. I didn't respond. Just like I hadn't answered the other messages, voicemails, and doorstep visits she had tried over the last 3 months. Some wounds run too deep. Some betrayals leave scars that no words can heal. When I saw Christine in the hospital bed, wrapped in soft bandages, she looked so small, but so strong. The doctor told me her implants would be turned on in a few weeks after healing. Christine opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice sleepy. "Did they give me my new ears?" I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and smiled. "Yes, baby. And soon, you'll be able to hear everything. So clearly." As Christine slowly drifted back to sleep, I heard a noise out in the hallway. It sounded like someone arguing. I stepped closer to the door and couldn't believe what I heard. Catherine was out there, raising her voice at the nurse. "Ma'am, only immediate family is allowed in the recovery room," the nurse said firmly. "I am family," Catherine snapped. "I'm her aunt. Please, just let me see her." I stepped into the hallway and gently closed the door behind me so Christine wouldn't hear. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Catherine looked awful. She had dark circles under her eyes, her hair was messy, and she was wearing old, wrinkled pajamas. She didn't look like the same person who once wore a sparkling dress at her wedding. "Mom told me the surgery was today," she said quietly. "I've been sitting in my car for hours trying to work up the courage to come inside." "To do what?" I asked coldly. "Steal her pain medicine? Take her implants and sell them for another fancy wedding." She winced. "I deserve that. I deserve all of it. But please, I need to make things right." I let out a bitter laugh. "Make things right? Timothy told me everything. That you had been planning this for months. That you searched my house more than once looking for valuables before you found the money. That's not desperation, Catherine. That's planned. That's stealing." Catherine lowered her head and slowly sat on the floor against the wall. "I know," she whispered. "What I did was wrong. It was unforgivable. The therapist Mom made me see. She's helping me realize how messed up I've become. How I cared more about looking perfect than actually being a good person. I hurt you. I hurt Christine. And I hate what I did." I looked at her closely for the first time in a long while. This wasn't the proud, perfect sister I used to know. She was broken, lost. We had grown up sharing everything, our clothes, secrets, even our dreams. Somewhere along the way, she had started chasing something fake. A life that looked good on the outside but was full of lies underneath. "Christine asks about you sometimes," I admitted. "She doesn't understand why Auntie Dorothy doesn't visit anymore." Tears rolled down Catherine's cheeks. "What do you tell her?" "I tell her that sometimes grown-ups make big mistakes, and they need time to learn how to be better people." Catherine looked up at me, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you really pressing charges?" I didn't answer right away. I looked back at Christine's door, and then at Catherine sitting there on the hospital floor, broken and ashamed. The silence between us said more than any words could. I shook my head slowly. "Timothy's check covered everything," I said. "But Catherine, the trust is gone. If you ever want to be part of our lives again, you'll have to rebuild it from the very beginning." Catherine looked up at me, her eyes full of regret. "How do I even start?" "Start by getting real help," I said. "Not just the therapy Mom arranged. Find a real program that will help you change.
Get a job.
Pay Timothy back. Don't tell me you're sorry. Show me with your actions. Prove that you understand how badly you hurt us." Just then, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "She's asking for you, Mrs. Stephen." I turned back to my sister. "I have to go. Christine needs me." As I reached for the door handle, Catherine spoke one last time. "Samantha, thank you for not pressing charges. And I'm sorry. I'm not just sorry for taking the money. I'm sorry for being the kind of person who could do that to her own niece." I nodded slowly. I couldn't trust myself to say anything just yet. Inside, Christine was sitting up a little, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Mommy," I heard voices. Was someone there? I walked to her bedside and gently smoothed her hair around the bandages. "Just someone learning a very important lesson, sweetie." "About magic ears?" she asked with a sleepy smile. I gave a soft laugh and kissed her forehead. "No, baby. About something even more important. How to be a better person." As Christine drifted back to sleep, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to our mother. "Catherine was here. Please help her get into a real outpatient program. Maybe if she's truly doing the work, we can talk about supervised visits in 7 months. I looked at Christine's peaceful face and felt a mix of sadness and hope. Sometimes, life teaches us the hardest lessons in the most painful ways. Catherine had lost everything by chasing a picture-perfect day. But from the mess she left behind, something good had grown. My daughter now had a chance to hear the world clearly for the first time. And it was all possible because of the downfall of someone who once cared more about image than love. It hit me then. Catherine had wanted her wedding to be unforgettable. And it was.
Just not in the way she planned.
In the end, her actions taught all of us something far more powerful than any wedding speech could have. They taught us that family means more than words, more than photos, more than one perfect day. And that trust, once broken, leaves scars that take far longer to heal than any surgery ever will.